Greetings, everyone, and welcome to GameFace, episode 372 on Sifted Games at Sifted.net. I'm Shane Satterfield, the founder of Sifted, and alongside me today to discuss some awesome video game stuff is Matt Kyle. What's up, Matt?
He found Sifted. He's not the founder of Sifted. He just found it.
I found it. It was just laying there in the gutter, and I just scooped it up.
And you're like, hey.
Yeah, what up, brah?
Clean this up, throw this in a pot. You got a stew going.
Exactly. Hey, everybody. How are you guys all doing? We've had a little bit of an emergency here today. Before we were filming, or before we got ready to film, we had an accident. And the monitor that used to be sitting here fell forward onto this mouse right here, and it shattered the monitor. It's insane.
Did that happen like just now when you were moving the thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just this morning when I'm setting up.
So that didn't happen during the week?
No,
Okay.
No. It knocked over, and it landed on the mouse, and the mouse shattered the monitor. So here's the thing. Normally I have a monitor over here off camera that you guys can't see, and that's where you guys are with chat. And Matt can see you guys, and I can see you guys. We had to take that monitor from you guys and put it over here so we could actually run the show on the TriCaster. So, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but we're not going to be able to bring you guys into the show today. Also, we did have Name That Game plan for today. We obviously can't do that because we can't bring chat into the show. Next week, this will all be fixed. I'll have a new monitor, and it'll be fine. But unfortunately, this happened as we were setting up for the show today, and there was no way to go get a monitor and bring it in time for the show. So we're going to trudge forward. We're still going to do the episode. Matt can see you guys on his phone. I can kind of see you guys on mine, but I'd have to go away from doing the other stuff I have to do. So anyway, just a heads up, we're not going to have as much interaction with you guys as we normally would, which makes the show worse. I'm just being honest with you. You guys make the show better every week. So it's disappointing, but unfortunately, we're just kind of making do with what we got here. And again, next week, we'll have a new monitor. Everything will be back to normal. And then, the week after that, I think, is when the new show kicks off. So, will that matter? You'll have to wait and find out.
You're the only one who knows that.
That's true.
I don't know why you're asking me.
How are you doing, Matt?
All right.
Yeah?
Monitor Shane Shatterfield. That's
there you go.
Correct, Cinetike.
There you go. That's very accurate. It's really crazy how easily that monitor shattered.
Yeah,
it literally fell from there onto this mouse, and that was it.
It was just the right angle, the right weak part of the screen, and there you go.
Yeah. So anyway.
Unfortunately, I don't have any other spare monitors around.
Yeah.
I usually do, but I finally got rid of all of them.
Yeah. We'll have a new one for next week, so don't worry about it. But unfortunately, again, you guys won't be in the show as much as normal this week, which, again, sucks, because you guys do make the show better. Pretty slow week in games. We do have a pretty big game to discuss in today's show that both Matt and I played. Actually, two of them, although Matt only played both of them. I only got to play one of them. We're going to preview Nintendo in 2024 today to continue our 2024 previews. Next week, we'll do Xbox and third party. And then there'll be a bunch of games in next week's episode because we have a bunch of games coming at the end of January. And then two pretty big ones right as February kicks off as well. So these next few episodes of GameFace are going to be pretty awesome for January and February episodes. But otherwise, it's been pretty slow. I mean, I feel like we're still kind of getting back into the groove of stuff.
Nobody ships anything
of consequence
early in January.
Early, yeah. And even the
Steam upcoming release is just nothing but porn.
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, it usually is, but even more so than usual.
But even the news this week was pretty slow. There wasn't a bunch of big news stories, so we're not going to have a ton of housekeeping today, which is kind of good because we do have three main topics we need to get to in today's show. And last week, Matt, even though we started the show late, we still went over by 20 minutes or whatever. That's all on me, by the way. I need to corral the shows better. I need to manage the shows better. And that is my goal for today, is to make sure it doesn't go to 3 hours and 20 minutes. We'll see how it goes. But we do have a great episode for you guys today. Yeah, I don't know, Matt. It feels like this was just a slow week in general. The Steelers lost yesterday on horrible officiating. I'm not saying that they would have went on to win the Super Bowl. As I've said all year, they're a bad football team, but they really got jobbed yesterday in that football game. I don't know if you guys watched it, but there were 4 terrible calls against the Steelers that were huge pivoting plays. I mean, I was actually surprised. The Steelers probably should have won that game. I hate to say it, but they didn't, and they're eliminated. And that's always an interesting day for me, Matt, because that's when I turn the page and get a bunch of free time added into my life. It's kind of nice, actually. I wish I could have got a little bit further, but unfortunately, it was not meant to be. But otherwise, it's just been a pretty mellow week. I feel like everyone, like my wife.
So when does the fantasy football stuff come?
Yep, good point. So you guys are probably wondering when are Matt and Shane going to do their draft? When is the Sifted Fantasy Challenge going to kick off? That all happens next week. Next week is going to be tough to get everything in the time that we have, unfortunately. We have a couple big games to talk about. We need to do our fantasy draft, and then we'll kick off during GameFace next Tuesday. We will kick off the Sifted Fantasy Challenge, which is the fantasy league that you guys all play in.
This year I'll remember to do that.
Yeah, this year remember to actually play. So anyway, and then you guys will have a week to get all your picks in for the Sifted Fantasy Challenge, and then we'll cut it off the next Tuesday. So you guys will have 7 days from next Tuesday to get your picks in for the Sifted Fantasy Challenge, and then Matt and I will do our draft next week as well, live right here on Twitch for you guys. So exciting stuff coming, but this week overall was kind of mellow, which is kind of good because I have a bunch of other stuff going on behind the scenes, trying to get the new show done and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of good that we got this little bit of a reprieve here to start the year. But I think with that, we're probably ready to kick off housekeeping. As I mentioned, fantasy stuff all happening next Tuesday. Get ready. Start doing your research. Do your own research. Get ready to make your picks for the Fantasy Challenge next week. And then something else that's happening right now as far as Sifted is concerned. Right now, we're taking questions for Pactor Factor. Right now. So we get all the time people just asking random questions on our YouTube channel. And I always reply to them. I'm like, yo, we ask for questions at specific points. Like, make sure you follow the community tab on YouTube. And nobody does. Unfortunately, the whole setup for YouTube is kind of goofy.
No one goes to those other tabs. Like, no one even knows they're there.
Yeah.
Well, I forget how to search someone's YouTube channel because they put that magnifying glass so far to the right.
Right. Yeah. Well, the thing is like our community tab is where we do communicate with our YouTube family. And you're right. Most people just ignore all the stuff that happens there, except for the people who subscribe to Sifted on YouTube. For the weirdest reason, that's where they have to go to get their content. So if you're a subscriber to us on YouTube, and we have a good many people who are subscribing to get our content early just on YouTube, if you do that, like, you have to go to the community tab. That's where all the early content is found on YouTube. It's the dumbest system ever. They asked me for my feedback on it, and I shared it with them. Let me tell you. So anyway,
you see now they've started doing this thing where if you're using an ad blocker on YouTube, YouTube will artificially tax your CPU.
No, I didn't see that.
To slow your computer down.
No.
And it's starting to happen to people who don't use ad blockers on YouTube but are using them in other tabs.
Oh my gosh. Well, I know there's
a reckoning coming.
There's a whole war going on right now between ad blocker and YouTube. For a couple days there, like the first, because look, I'll be honest with you, I have to use YouTube for work all day long. If I watched ads on YouTube, my productivity would be cut down by 50%. So I do run an ad blocker on YouTube while I am working. And for a day and a half last week, YouTube would show the first 3 seconds of an ad, and then the ad blocker would zap it.
You know what would convince me to not use the ad blocker so much is if the commercials were sound balanced to the rest of the video.
That would help.
And it wasn't like video. You're like, this is like it blows the fucking room out sometimes.
Watching a 30-second ad to watch a 45-second video, no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, well, especially because if the worst is when it's like, oh, I can't get back to the phone or the computer to skip the ad after 5 seconds, and there's you're doing something else, and there's a moment where you're like, this is still going?
And there are some ads.
It's 2:30.
There are some ads on YouTube that are 5 minutes long.
It's crazy.
And there's sometimes where I'm watching YouTube and I fall asleep, and I'll wake up and it will be 8 minutes into a 21-minute ad about real estate in West Los Angeles or whatever.
Yeah. But it's they've basically made their own bet on that one. It's you sold yourself on the whole thing that you're better than actual TV because you don't have to watch commercials all the time, and then you realize that commercials exist for a reason.
Well, commercials are worse, I believe, worse on YouTube than they are watching television.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the other part about it is, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but
also because at least you know when the commercial's coming and all the shows have to design them, whereas they pop up. If you don't want to take the time, who does want to take the time to put all the ads in specific places?
I do it.
They just pop up in the middle of people's sentences.
I do it. And the hard part is, you can put your ads in very specific places, and when you actually watch it, it'll be a second. It'll be 3 seconds off. And then it just ruins the whole thing.
Yeah. I see that, too, where sometimes, it's oh, you wanted it to be here, but it jumps in 5 words before your sentence is over. And because
even if you try. The real problem, though, Matt, is that users can insert ads wherever they want.
Right.
And so what they do is you watch an ad when the video first starts playing, and then they insert their first ad at like 1 minute and 5 seconds. Because if you look at the data, most people, when they watch a YouTube video, they watch it for like 2 minutes, and then they close it and go somewhere else. So people are trying to get that second ad view in there, and it's it's like a catch-22, because it's making the experience worse, which means people don't want to use it, which means they end up showing more ads. It's just this... as
opposed to me, who basically puts H-Bomber guy on as background noise.
Yeah.
Hours and hours and hours.
I think what they're just trying to do is make the experience so awful that everyone just starts paying the $10 a month for YouTube, whatever it is, Plus or whatever the hell they call it.
Which, in the words of Michael Caine, never.
Yeah. Well, also the problem there is that say you like Sifted, and you're like, man, I turn off my ad blocker when I watch Sifted because I want to make sure Shane and crew get revenue.
It doesn't help the people you're watching at all.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I don't think there's any answer to it, honestly. I don't think they're ever going to find a solution for it.
The thing that cracks me up are the other people is well, you're just like you can't just better to even pirate it, because then you're not using Google's bandwidth, for no ads. I'm like, are you defending Google? Who cares?
Google, by the way, in West LA, bought this shopping mall, legendary shopping mall that had been there for decades and had a great movie theater there that was like a mile away from where I live. Google bought
the Fox Hills one?
No, the one right on Pico, right over here in West LA.
Oh, that Westfield place?
Yeah, right across the street from Apple Pan or whatever.
Yeah.
Google bought it, a huge shopping mall, 3-floor shopping mall, gutted it, built this crazy headquarters, got about 80% done with it, and realized that nobody goes to work anymore.
Yeah.
And they've just left it there. They've literally just spent
they created a new husk.
$1 billion that they just were like, whatever, we'll just write it off. And you're worried about watching an ad on YouTube. Yeah. The other problem, too, is that if people subscribe, it's hard for us to get money, to get paid, because you have to physically go and say, oh, I like Sifted, I like GameFace, I like Pactor Factor, I want to make sure that they're getting revenue. You have to do that. You have to physically go and do it. It doesn't just automatically say, oh, you're watching Sifted, so we're going to send some money to them. That's not how it works. You have to go and basically say, yes, I want to make sure some of my subscription money goes to Sifted. Who's going to do that? I wouldn't blame you guys if you didn't do that. So, yeah, YouTube, it's I've talked about YouTube since I launched Sifted. It's one of the big reasons game trailers went away. They stole all of our content, and we're serving it without ads, and people went there to watch it instead of watching it. Anyway, I'm not a fan of YouTube.
If you have 4 hours for H-Bomber Guy's plagiarism video, it's eye-opening.
Yeah. Yeah. It still blows my mind to this day that YouTube won the lawsuit against Viacom.
It is remarkable.
It is insane that they won that lawsuit. They literally stole...
You understand why the AI people are bold enough to be like, hey, it would be really great if copyright didn't apply to us, because otherwise these things don't work.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, because it worked. They got that basically the same thing before with YouTube, so why not try it again?
YouTube built its business with everyone else's content and never paid anyone a penny. Mm-hmm. It's insane that they won that lawsuit.
And they still do that with all even the big YouTubers. Are like, yeah,
it's still a ripoff. Like, you go in and you find content all over the place where people are serving ads, and it's not the person who
Everyone's
created
like, how
the content.
come Mr. Beast does all these these tie-in and promotional things? Because that's where his money comes from, not YouTube.
Yeah, that's why we have so many sponsorships.
Like, is he making more money from YouTube than probably everyone else on YouTube? Yeah. Is he making the money you think Mr. Beast has from that? No.
Because his outlay for every video is at least $500,000.
Yeah, he's making that from sponsorships.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
outside of YouTube, too.
Absolutely.
There's a reason he has his own chocolate bar.
Yeah, exactly. And he probably has, energy bars and, supplements and all the other stuff that the internet people sell.
I mean, get that bag. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. You got to get paid.
Strike it when it's hot, because he's not going to be hot forever.
That's true.
This is his window.
Well, the funny part is he's actually busted his ass for so long.
Yeah.
He was one of the first YouTubers. And I mean, I
remember that was the funny thing when I saw some of my friends' kids watching him. I'm like, is that the same guy? I was like, because I remember him from way back.
Yeah. I mean, he paid his dues. I love Mr. Beast, honestly. Whether you like his videos or not, he's doing good for people, and he paid his dues. So
yeah, there's two ways to see. I understand that people are just like, well, he's just really rich, and he's doing it only for this number of people, and he's not solving anything. Yeah, but he is drawing attention to the problem.
He restored hearing in hundreds of people.
Yeah. But
who else could say they did that?
But also, the hope there, I think, is that he used, there's publicity and raising the awareness that this is a thing that can happen, and then maybe other people step in and try to make it more sustainable or more widespread, or give it more that's the purpose of Matt Damon being so vocal about clean drinking water.
Right.
Is Matt Damon saying that is not going to solve anything. Matt Damon doing a photo op, like working with some of these people, like in some country, is not going to solve that country's water problem. But it raises the visibility. You get extra donations. You get people that are fans to like care about
people
that.
Pay attention.
That's how that works.
Yeah, Mr. Beast, in my opinion, is good people. So I got nothing but love for that guy. So anyway. Just a heads up on what's happening on YouTube right now. And if you are one of our subscribers, then you know on YouTube that you have to go to our community tab to find the videos. It's so dumb. Like, it should just be like you go to our list of videos, and if you're a subscriber, the videos are at the top for you. Mm-hmm. And maybe there's a little icon on them, like we have, like a little star to show you that, like, that's for our subscribers. It's very simple. I don't know why YouTube will do it. Again, they asked me for my feedback, and I gave it to them, let me tell you. So anyway...
so yeah, Pactor questions.
Yeah, don't forget. We're taking questions for Pack. It's funny how we go on tangents. We're taking questions for Pactor Factor right now. You can do that on Twitter, X, whatever the hell you want to call it. You can do it on our community tab on our YouTube page. I mean, you can do it on sifted.net. You can do it on our Patreon page as well. Get those questions in. We shoot on Friday, so you guys got a little bit of time, so if you want to think about them. You have a couple days here to sort it out before we have to go and shoot with the Pac-Man. And with that, let's get into housekeeping in earnest. First thing we're going to talk about, and it's the timing of this is very odd, Matt, because I just showed off a brand new DualSense Edge controller last week that Justin Horman very graciously sent to me for a holiday gift. And then literally the next day, I'm curating, and this story comes across the wires. And as it turns out, PlayStation is working on an updated version of the DualSense controller called the DualSense V2. Now,
everybody in London got a little nervous about that one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my guess is that it'll eventually just replace the pack-in with...
Probably. Like similar to the Slim PS5.
Yeah. So if you're wondering if this is legit, we try to vet stuff before we run it on GameFace, as you know. This was a listing on Best Buy Canada's website. So... that's a pretty damn good sign that this is real.
Yeah.
And they took it down, actually. So here's the other thing. They took it down after the story broke, and then PlayStation never issued anything saying that that's not true.
So to see that in the next state of play, basically.
Pretty much. That'd be my guess.
Yeah.
So it's called the DualSense V2 controller. They're saying, at least the listing, was selling for the same price as the existing DualSense, except... it has double the battery life, 12 hours of the DualSense, which if you remember last week...
yeah, that sounds more like 4 hours to me.
Right. You're right.
By my DualSense.
Right, exactly. If you remember last week, I talked about the DualSense Edge. My big complaint with it was its battery life.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday I played the Granblue Fantasy demo.
Relink, yeah.
And I didn't have my... usually I have my my controller plugged into my laptop to keep it charged, and I didn't this time because my laptop was elsewhere updating. And it was out of batteries by the end of the demo. It was down to 1 bar and flashing. And like that was like 2 hours.
My DualSense Edge, I've actually started paying more attention to it. It does feel like it gets like 3 hours before it's like I'm starting to get the alerts. And that's with like the rumbles turned off.
Yeah. Meanwhile, it's like I saw some tweets this week where people are like showing the Pro controller for the Switch and be like, how does this thing... I charge it once and it stays charged for like 3 months no matter how much I play with it. I'm like, well, that's part of it, I'm sure, is because it doesn't have any fucking lights on it.
It doesn't have any lights. Also, the rumble in it is
not
awful.
As advanced. Like, it doesn't have a touch screen on the thing. Like, you know, there's a lot of stuff not drawing power on that, but it lasts forever.
It does. I literally think though that like the
and it
N60
holds that charge.
I know, it's crazy.
Like I haven't sometimes like there have been times I haven't touched that Switch controller in months, and I pick it up and it's still fully charged.
You have to have not bumped it though. If you bump it at all or move it, it actually wakes up and will drain the battery.
Yeah, that will do that.
You have to like leave it someplace where like you can't put it on the couch, or if you sit on the couch, it'll jostle it a little bit and like wake it up or whatever. So anyway, already they're coming out with a new controller. The battery life of the DualSense, I think they needed to.
Yeah, that is the thing that needs improvement.
Yeah, another thing that was in the listing is that it comes with a charging dock. My big question about this is how is it the same price? That's where I'm like, I don't know. That's what sounds shady to me.
This might actually be finally an example of the components for that 4-year-old controller now finally going down in price.
That's true.
Because the chips, the components on that might drop in price. They're not chips. Chips are always going to stay up there these days. That could be. My problem is like I don't have any room in my entertainment center for a dock. I don't know anywhere to put that.
I haven't had one of those since, well, no, my PS4, I had a controller charging dock.
Yeah, I've never had one of those. I have the dock for the Switch, because what choice do you have?
I got it at Packer's Party.
Oh,
it was a gift bag.
That's right.
You probably had one, you just never set it up.
Yeah, it's probably in a bag in the garage somewhere.
Probably still in the Packer Party bag in the garage. But he gave them to everybody at his party one time, that and a couple other things. So I have had one. It was kind of more annoying. Like, what ended up happening is I just had one controller that I never used. It just constantly sat in the charging dock. And I never took it out and played it. I just kept recharging the one that I was using. So anyway, if you, like us, aren't 100% happy with the battery life of the DualSense controller for PlayStation 5, it does look like relief is on the way. The fact that there was a listing on Best Buy Canada already means it's probably coming pretty soon.
Yeah.
Like next month or two would be my guess. And you're right, probably next State of Play, they'll announce it or something.
Shadow dropped.
Exactly, and it's there. But I think this is good news overall.
Download it now.
Right. So I think this is good news overall. The price, I would be surprised if it's the same price, but you're right. The cost of stuff does go down over time. Maybe the offsets of what the stuff is now cheaper, they can add.
I would imagine that dock is real cheap.
Yeah, so it's probably just a piece of one little piece of plastic that just plugs into or whatever. Yeah. So anyway, DualSense
probably didn't even come with the cord.
Yeah, you're like Apple.
Well, it's probably. It probably doesn't. It's probably just like plug the cord that came with your controller into the PS5.
No, you're probably right. Actually, no, you're right. I didn't think about that. Yep, you're probably right. Yep. So anyway, that's the DualSense V2 controller. My guess is you'll be hearing more about it very, very soon. Next up, more cultural stuff. It feels like every week I'm disappointed by.
Dignify this behavior with that word.
Yeah, I feel like every week I'm disappointed at least once in us. Like, our people, gamers, people who I know I hate to say that, but in a lot of ways they are. They do have a lot of similar interests that we do.
I don't care who similar interests.
And like it or not, people do corral us together into one group of people, the gamers or whatever.
Nope. Not me.
But you know, Matt, I understand you're not like them, but other people look at gamers as just gamers.
I don't see people like looking at the people who did this as gamers just as chuds.
Yeah.
I mean, because this crosses all kinds of hobby lines into comic books and movies and TV and all that. Like, this isn't less and less being assigned to people into a particular thing and more being assigned to a particular kind of person.
Yeah.
Which is good because that is accurate.
It's true. By the way, the story is that the face actress for Mary Jane in Marvel Spider-Man 2 has been getting relentlessly harassed by gamers. And this is a woman who's not used to working in this space.
Well, she's just a face model. She was a face model for the first game, too. Mm-hmm. But the problem was that a bunch of dipshits, as is typical, decided she's ugly in the new game because her face looks different. And some people chalk this up to being like, oh, she's supposed to be older. They're all supposed to be older. They look different. Mm-hmm. But the main difference is because the actual model, this woman, was in a horrible car accident and had her jaw shattered and had to have it all reconstructed with plastic surgery. So she looks a little different.
Yeah.
And so people were calling her work because she has a day job and sending her death threats and trying to show up at where she worked. And it's horrible. And she had to go on social media and basically tell everyone that this was happening and to knock it off. And I don't know if they actually knocked it off. Hopefully she got the police involved somehow. Not that they really do anything in these situations.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like they ever do anything.
Well, because it's just like, we can't do anything until they hurt you, basically.
Well, the other problem, too, is that a lot of times the people who are doing the harassing are outside of their jurisdiction.
Right.
They're in some other state or in some other country, and they're like, well, we don't have any power there. We can't do anything for you. And as you said, the chuds know this, and they know that they can get away with it. Until it comes down to violence, in reality, it seems like the authorities just don't care.
They often don't. And it's pathetic.
It really is pathetic. Another example.
It's like, you don't have to like what Mary Jane looks like in the game, but what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like, it's just astounding how I don't have the words for it. Like, and some of it's just like the pure entitlement, the belief that by being enough of an online asshole, you can change the thing that you don't like into the thing you like. It's like one of the worst things that I think that ever happened in terms of this behavior is them changing the Sonic the Hedgehog CG model in the movie.
I agree.
Because all of a sudden, all these dumbasses, that and the Zack Snyder Justice League cut are the two things that are like, all of these idiots believe that they can if they just scream and hit hard enough, that these corporations will change this thing to what they want it to be.
Yeah.
And more often than not, that is not true.
Yeah.
And in the case of,
now to be fair, I will say the new Sonic looked better than the old one.
Oh, it did, absolutely. And I will say, they have never admitted it, but I will put money on the fact that CG model was ready to go.
Yeah.
Like there was an internal debate over which Sonic that had to be.
For sure.
Had to be.
Because they came up with the new one so quickly.
And the Snyder Cut was just, Warner Brothers desperately wanted something to draw eyes to HBO Max at the time.
Yeah.
And now we've got numbers that say that basically 2.2 million people watched that. They spent $100 million on that 2.2 million people. You know how many people watched Mandalorian Season 3? 22 million.
Yeah.
So it was not worth it at all.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to fuck with this woman and act like it's somehow her fault that she looks the way she looks, just because you think it doesn't look good. It's insane. It's literally insane.
I feel like social media has given fans agency where they feel like they are in control of their favorite
I think the
art.
delusion of agency.
Right. In some cases, it has happened, though, and you're right, that's a dangerous precedent to set, even though, again, the new Sonic looked better than the old Sonic, and in this case, the fans were right. They're not going to be right most of the time.
No.
I want the artist to make their art.
And it's never going to be something where it's like, the fans said this thing, so we're going to start from scratch to change it to be what they said it should be, because that's not what happened in Sonic.
No, they're going to find the quickest, dirtiest way.
That was an argument that they were having in production over what Sonic should look like. And when the fans revolted against that first trailer, I believe the director wanted him to look the way he ended up looking, more like the game.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw the director tweeting that day about, like, hang on, we're going to figure it out. Like that dude lost a fight with the producers at the studio and now realized he could win.
Yeah.
I would bet money on that. They've never talked about that, and they never will until everyone's so old their careers are over. And again, you can talk about it, and it doesn't matter. Maybe we'll hear about it in like 20, 30 years. But like, I believe that that's what happened there.
Well, the other angle of it, too,
and they've got 3 movies out of it now, so it was the right decision, but don't ever believe that happened from whole cloth because people complained about it on Twitter.
Well, I think the other thing, too, is that, you have people, there are so many things that are run by Patreons and Kickstarters and things like that people literally have skin in the game now. Mm-hmm. It's different. And so I feel like they feel that they have agency and that they should be able to tell the creators how they should be creating. I think...
And that's always existed to some degree. I mean, if you look at the old Marvel letters pages back when we were kids, there's people writing in shit like that at the time. You'd see that with old game magazines. Look at the late 80s game magazines, and you're going to see tons of... I could drag up scans of it at some point. It might be fun to do that at some point. Like, people about the NES. The NES had been out for like a year, like late 80s, very late 80s. I can do Video Games Computer Entertainment Magazine. Almost every month, there's a letter in one of those the letters column talking about how creativity and innovation in video games are dead and are never coming back because everything's a Mario clone now, and Nintendo has killed video games. Like, that is an actual every month there's someone saying that about how all the innovation of the old days and the Atari 2600 and the old arcades is gone, and now we're stuck with all this cookie cutter crap on consoles, and it'll never be good again.
Yeah,
it's the same shit you hear today too.
Yeah,
every time.
Yeah.
And no one had to listen to those people then, and they shouldn't have, because they were wrong, and they're wrong now too.
Yeah, I want the artist to make the art.
And unfortunately,
honestly,
screaming into the wind does not take the form of pointless letters to the editor column that nobody reads anyway. And now it's like, someone with 1 million followers on.
Well, it's because of social media.
YouTube.
Social media has changed everything. I mean,
and the fact that the outrage farming is effective.
It is.
Like, these people get 1 million, 2-3 million views on their stupid, like, Mary Jane's Ugly Now video.
Yeah.
And that's all they do.
Yeah.
That's all they do. That's your existence. And I'm sure some of those people probably didn't start out as horrible dipshit assholes, but they've become that
because of money. Because they've realized that's how they can make money.
Because they immerse themselves in this every day. You can't avoid being affected by that.
Because you're also watching everybody else's outrage videos, and you can't help but be influenced.
And all these people are giving you positive feedback for doing that, because they feel they feel left behind or shorted by what the industry has become. I'm just like, man, I've been here since longer than you dipshits have been alive.
Yeah.
And I think it's better than ever, so I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, we're in a time, we've never really dealt with this before. Like, again, the combination of crowdfunding things and social media where everybody has a voice. And in some cases, like, if you have 1 million followers on Twitter or whatever, and you tell your followers to not buy something or not go see something, that matters.
It can.
I mean, you could do the math very simply. If it's a film and you're like, don't go see this film, and you do the math and it's like 15 times like 800,000 or whatever, that's a lot of money. Like,
it is, but it's not enough to matter in a blockbuster thing.
I mean, it worked for Sonic.
Well, it worked for Sonic in the sense that...
But everybody was pissed off.
Everybody like that. Also, like, you know, the chuds were not the only ones mad about it. It was everyone who thought Sonic should look like Sonic. You know, it's a different situation.
I mean, I think you and I also agreed that the first Sonic looked weird.
It's terrible. Yeah. It's absolutely terrible. But, like, you know, if that was how they decided, that's how they decided. And, you know, and that's happened in adaptations of things plenty of times. But, like, you know, there was a time when, like, Hellboy would come out and you're like, wow, he looks like the character. I recognize who that is. You know, Spawn was notable in 1997 because they didn't change the look of the character.
I don't understand how they find Mary Jane unattractive in the game. She's hot AF. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what's wrong with people?
I don't get it.
Look, beauty is obviously in the eye of the beholder or whatever, but I mean, she looks pretty damn good in Spider-Man 2.
I mean, does she look like, you know, no one in that game looks like a supermodel. No one in that game looks like
they look like human beings.
They look like people.
Yeah.
And that's... And I know there's people that's like, well, that's not the point of a comic book. But it is. Like, okay, it's like, yeah, I know everybody draws everyone like they're in a figure drawing class and everyone has 0% body fat. But, like, it doesn't mean that that's how they have to look in every medium.
Who decides what the point of anything is? Nobody. The artist gets to decide that. You as a fan, me as a fan, I don't get to choose that. The artist chooses what the intention of the art is.
And back in the day when Rob Liefeld would take over a book you cared about, your only option was to stop buying it.
Yeah.
Because, like, I couldn't look at that crap.
Yeah.
So I would, you know, that was the end of it.
Maybe you hand wrote your letter in, and maybe
not even that. Like,
some people will.
It was the style at the time, and so I was like,
Yeah.
okay, now he's on New Mutants, and I read New Mutants for 90 issues, but I'm going to stop now because I can't look at this man who can't draw feet.
Yeah. Well, here's one thing I know for sure. Y'all aren't the ones doing this. You guys are all great people. I see you guys interact on Sifted every day. This is not your MO. So we're not calling you guys out and saying do better or anything like that. But there are some people who maybe watch our show on YouTube that might be doing this stuff. And you need to stop. You need to stop. You need to step back and be an adult. And you need to stop. It's insane. Leave these people alone. She's just a face model.
Yeah, whine about it online all you want, but leave the actress alone. Like, what the hell is it? What are you doing?
What are you doing? Stop making the rest of us look bad, man. We've Matt and I and people our age.
I don't hold with that. You don't make me look bad because I ain't you. I'm not. I don't.
I feel I do look bad to some people. My family does not delineate Shane the gamer from gamers.
Well, they also don't know that anyone's harassing Mary Jane's face model. So
I think they know that stuff like that happens for sure.
Sure, but like whatever.
Yeah.
Like I always go back to an old Chris Rock bit. Where and this is kind of the same thing with, like, you know, where people are like, oh, men do this, and all these, you get all these like, not all men, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And like, I don't get that way because I don't think that, and the reason, and I realized later the reason is this thing that Chris Rock did where it's an old, I mean, it's 20 years old or maybe more now, but he's talking about like how nasty and obscene and gross like lyrics in hip hop and club songs.
If you just say the words instead of rapping,
and he's like, you see these women that are like super empowered and like, you know, feminists, and they want and then they in the club dancing to songs like "Slap Her with a Dick," "Slap Her with a Dick."
Yeah, I remember that bit.
And you're like, and I was like, don't you find this like kind of offensive? Like, isn't this sort of like really gross that's and every one of them that I asked is the same thing. He ain't talking about me.
Right?
Slap her with a dick. Slap her with a dick. And I'm just like, yeah, they ain't talking about me. So why would I be offended? They're not talking about me.
I do know that people in my family, when they hear gamer, their first thing they think of is me.
Yeah, well, they don't think of that with me because I've never called myself that.
I don't either. In fact, I would not use the word gamer for probably the first 18 years of my career. I refused to use the word gamer. I would always use player or players. Well, and it drove the marketing department at MTV bonkers.
Oh, I'm sure.
They're like, no, we need to use gamers. Don't use gamers. Gamer. It's a derogatory term.
Yeah, by that point, it was that point, yeah.
Yeah.
And then or you could go back to the old early computer entertainment VG and CE days where they really, really tried to make computerist catch on.
I kind of like that.
Arnie Katz really wanted computerist to be the term.
It does cast a wider net.
Yeah.
I would consider myself
because
a computerist.
his rationale was that's what we call people who play other things, like a pianist or a guitarist or like and so we're computerists because we play. I'm like, bro, I appreciate what you're doing.
I see what you're trying to do here, but yeah. So anyway, be better, people. One thing I was going to say, Matt, before you kind of jumped in and explained something, was that like I feel like we fought for this. Like, you and people our age, I feel like we fought through, like, the negative stereotypes of gamers, the antisocial, the weirdo, I feel like, we've come so far that to me it's frustrating to see there are still some people among us that are trying to drag us back to those stereotypes.
But again, I think you're a little too in the bubble on this. I don't. Everyone plays video games, and like the word gamer doesn't mean anything anymore unless you are using it to mean your identity as a person.
Well, I think it's derogatory.
And anyone who does that is probably more likely to be in the group that's harassing Mary Jane.
Well, I think when people say gamer, they don't mean like our casual friends who play 2 video games a year. Right. I think they think of people who like spend 8 hours a day playing video games.
But I don't even think that, because that's me to some degree. But like what I think of when someone says gamer, I think, oh, your entire personality is this hobby.
Yeah.
And that's not me, and that's not you.
I think that's what most people think.
It's not anybody. That's what people who are in that space think. Mm-hmm. I think most people don't really even care anymore. Like the fact that this kind of behavior is happening, like the red pill stuff, the all that shit, like that is very extremely online things. Most people don't know that's even happening.
No, you're right. Yeah.
Like the stigma comes up when a mass shooter is a big gamer.
He has a Doom poster on his wall.
Yeah, I mean that goes back to Columbine, right?
It does,
that's never going away because they practiced while playing Doom, and like I don't think that would work really anymore because too many people in the general world have played video games and know that playing a lot of Call of Duty is not going to make you a better shot in the real world.
They also know that it's not going to make them go out and shoot people either.
Right. Well, because
they're playing Call of Duty and they're not shooting anyone.
Yeah, because there would be tens of millions of shooting.
Right.
Like, it's like,
well,
I mean, there's not tens of millions.
There kind of are, Matt.
There's hundreds.
Not because of games,
but there's not tens of millions. If that was an actual connection, especially when the funny thing about that is the fact that they blame the most popular games on the planet, Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto. It's like if Grand Theft Auto 5 was causing actual sociopathic, murderous behavior,
our society would be in ruins.
We'd all be dead.
You're right. They do always pick the most popular. They should pick this like weird, obscure, like Slender Man game, or
blame like that hatred game or something. Only like the chuds play that. Let's say that. Like, that would be a more. But they're not
smart enough.
But also the media that gets mad about that shit are not after those people because that's their audience.
Right. Oh, touche.
So
there you go. So anyway, let's all be better. Let's just make that pledge. And if you see stuff like this going on out there, call it out. Next. I don't know how excited you are for this, Matt. I don't know how excited I am for this either, but Halo Season 2 on Paramount Plus is about to launch.
It won't go away, huh?
Season 2 starts on February the 8th.
I saw a clip where he's fighting completely out of his armor.
Oh, really?
Like he's not wearing any armor.
Wow.
Just a guy in fatigues. And then the actor who plays Master Chief went on and said, like, the people complaining about him not wearing the helmet are stupid because you can't emote in a helmet, which led to people posting endless clips of actors emoting in helmets from The Mandalorian, from Power Rangers, from various tokusatsu things in Japan, from anyone in a mask, from Jason, from Friday the 13th.
You go on and on.
All the time. From an interview with Katie Sackhoff, who said she prefers acting in the mask as Bo-Katan because she gets to focus on her body language.
Yeah.
Like, if you wanted to do or just clips of Master Chief from the Halo games where he does in fact evoke emotional responses and behaviors because the people animating him know how to do that.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, man.
The real problem is you have to be skilled.
Yeah, it's a skill issue.
It's challenging. It's not easy.
There's plenty of times I know what Iron Man's thinking, and he's got his helmet on, or Spider-Man, and he's got his mask on.
Just by cocking his head a certain direction at the right time.
Like, it took Hollywood a long time to learn that about superheroes and masks and helmets, but like we got there. Like fucking Pablo Pascal wasn't even in Mandalorian season 3.
No, you're right. Yeah,
just voiced it, and it was fine.
Yeah, it was great. I mean,
Master Chief can do it. I promise.
Way more than fine.
More and more, it's just like, God, Halo should have ended at 3.
Yeah, I agree.
And now, right now, should be the time they'd be thinking about bringing in Halo 4.
Yeah.
Like, it's laid dormant for like 15 years.
Now what can we do with it?
We're thinking about what to do with it. Like, imagine how much more impact Wake Me When You Need Me would have if they'd waited like
you're
10
right.
years.
Well, the funny part about it, too, is that, like, they've ruined it now.
Right.
Like, it's too late. Like, they've already shown their hand. Like,
well, especially this show. I'm never looking at that show seriously.
Yeah.
You know,
well, the show itself, like, the first season, I enjoyed the first couple episodes. And the more I watched
like, the first episode is like, oh, wow, like, that's
might
really
be all
well
right.
done. Like,
and then the more I watched it, the less I liked it.
Yeah, the more they made Master Chief into just some random guy who happened to have armor, like I didn't recognize it anymore.
Yeah, I didn't feel like
And
Halo.
look, if you want to just tell an in the universe of Halo story about some ODST guy who okay, cool.
Yeah.
But like another option that I think I saw people talk about that I think would have worked is if the whole show was from the point of view of like an ODST squad and Master Chief was basically like this god striding through the battlefield at times.
Yeah.
And they slowly got involved with him as like sort of they get stuck in an operation where they're stuck together or whatever, and like you slowly learn about the real version of Master Chief from them as they get to know him. And then maybe you could move on in a season 2 and have him be the central character because you've established who he is and what people see him as.
Yeah. I mean, the crazy part is they figured it out already. They made Halo ODST.
Yeah.
Like, they already understand this. Like, they were the Rogue One before Rogue One.
Yeah, and the universe can support that.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing is there's other stories I mean, the 343 should learn that too. There's stories to tell in this universe that do not require Master Chief at the center of it.
Yeah. But this TV show, though, is
either shit or get off the pot with the Cortana thing. Like, either do something with her or don't.
They can't let her go
3
away.
games.
She's too popular.
Yeah.
People love her too much. If you haven't figured out, by the way, this B-roll we're showing you is not from the TV show, the Paramount Plus show. Because if we show you that, we'll get copyright flags.
Yeah, also you can tell because he's got his helmet on.
Right. So anyway, season 2 is launching on February 8th. I don't even know if I'm going to watch the first episode. I completely fell off by the time the end of first season 1 came.
I can't imagine. I got other things to watch.
Yeah. And I'm not paying money for sure to watch it.
Oh, no. Is that Paramount?
Paramount Plus, yeah.
I think I do still have Paramount Plus, but just for Star Trek, really.
By the way, just in case you care, they did put the whole first season up on YouTube to watch for free to try to sucker you in so you go and pay for season 2. So if you do want to watch the first season of Halo, you can right now.
Which might be the worst way to try to get me to watch season 2 by showing me season 1.
They probably should have just put the first episode up.
The first episode is pretty solid Halo work.
Yeah.
And then it just like it becomes like it feels like, did you just want to make like a spin-off of The Expanse or something?
Kinda.
Because like it
feels
just,
similar.
except not nearly as good as The Expanse.
Yeah.
Like it's so weird the way.
So anyway,
Master Chief doesn't fuck. I'm sorry, people. Like that's just not.
Yeah, he really doesn't. Like
no.
Yeah,
like,
he shouldn't.
Like the closest relationship he has was with an AI in his head.
Yeah. Literally in his head. He puts the chip in his head. So anyway, there you go. Halo, the TV show, season 2, launching February 8th on Paramount Plus. I feel like we talk about this next game every single episode of GameFace because we do. And love it or hate it, talk trash about it all you want. I will say this, Warner Brothers and Rocksteady know how to make sure that their game is in the news every single week. I think it has been in housekeeping on GameFace literally the last 8 episodes straight.
Yeah, but
there's always some little tidbit about it.
In the same way that you know that you can always get KTLA to go live if you get in a car chase.
Right.
You know, it doesn't mean a good thing happening.
That's true. That's absolutely true. And in fact, the news from this week also was not good. So Rocksteady, as you guys know, did the Batman Arkham games that are just basically everybody loves. And now we're getting the Suicide Squad, cooperative third-person shooter thing that they have been fighting with the game as a service tag all along, saying it was never a game as a service. It's not a game as a service. It's just a cooperative shooter.
And then you look at the loot people were posting up, and it's like, guys,
well,
who in the world do you think you're fooling?
Yeah.
Like, clearly they stripped the game as a service stuff out of it.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened. Yeah, it's like,
come on.
So last year it was supposed to come out. Like they had given us a solid release date. There was nothing hinting that it was not going to come out. And then out of nowhere, they're like, oh, we're delaying it a year. And people are like, wait a minute. Like, what would you have to delay a game for a year for? Mm-hmm. And as it turns out, the reason they delayed it a year was because they were stripping out the gear scores from the game, which is literally the epitome of games as a service.
Yeah, like
when
that's
you see
the grind.
that is games as a service. Gear scores is the most obvious thing you can have in your game to designate it as a game as a service.
Like that's the grind.
That's what it is.
Raising the gear
Yes,
score.
that's what it is. And so they spent the last year going back, stripping out all that stuff, so that when it finally releases, people like us won't say it's a game as a service.
Well, the problem is the thing they should have done is strip out the gear.
Exactly.
Because I don't know if you've seen some of these things that people were posting of, like, you know, the different high-level gear things.
I haven't seen it, no.
My favorite one, it was an axe, but it is Poison Ivy's axe. It is Poison Ivy's famous, iconic, ice magic-infused battle axe that freezes enemies
Just what you expect
and
from
then
Poison
does
Ivy.
melee damage. And it's like, what? But also, there's something else that somebody else figured out on Twitter. Unfortunately, I don't remember what their name was, but they're like, just another note on the Poison Ivy axe. It does ice. It freezes enemies and does melee damage because it's an axe, right?
Yeah.
In Suicide Squad, apparently, according to this person, ice, while it does freeze enemies, makes them less susceptible to melee damage. So the special effect of the weapon makes it do less damage. People who watch this show regularly know that I try to give the benefit of the doubt to developers and and give them the respect that I think they deserve. So I really try not to kind of go in this direction often. But like, Rocksteady, what the fuck were you doing for 9 years?
I know, man.
Who wants this?
Well, here's the other thing. So
what the hell is going on with this game?
Here's another news tidbit that came out this week around Rocksteady. Is that, remember how there were those rumors all along that they were working on the Superman game? Everyone thought that they're making Superman.
So I understand that was not true.
They never worked on it.
Yeah.
They've never worked on it. So this is reporting from Jason Schreier at Bloomberg, and we always like to give credit for good reporting. Jason Schreier reported this yesterday on Bloomberg, that they never even touched a Superman game. They were working on some other random multiplayer game based on just some unique IP that whole time. And then it was canceled and killed. Also,
well, because Montreal was working on the Suicide Squad game, right? Because like the Suicide Squad tease at the end of Arkham Origins, which was by them.
And that game has been canceled.
Yeah.
So once Rocksteady started working on its Suicide Squad game, WB Montreal continued working on its game. But eventually, my guess is a lot of the feedback that they got from this game, they're like, let's just kill that other one.
Well, and I believe, my feeling is that Suicide Squad game probably became Gotham Knights.
I think you may be right. Yeah, because it makes sense.
Yeah, the framework.
It does. Absolutely. Yep. So anyway, Suicide Squad's coming out soon. It's like February 2nd or something?
Beginning of the month.
Yeah. Here in like a couple weeks, it's finally coming out. So chances are it probably won't be in housekeeping again. Next time we talk about it, we'll be talking about what...
I mean, God knows what can happen between now and next week.
Right. They could delay it for another year. Who knows? It seems like Warner Brothers is just like, do whatever the hell you want, because, I mean, they've had this studio sitting around not releasing anything for almost a decade at this point, and seem to be okay with it. But anyway, it does come out in a couple weeks.
Makes you wonder what happens next.
Yeah. The other thing, too, is that like they put out those previews last week, and it was almost unanimously panned by the major publications.
I've never seen previews like that.
It's very rare.
I can't remember the last time so many major outlets were like, this sucks.
Yeah,
like
it's very rare.
Especially for a big name game with a big license, with a big publisher. Like, and usually it's just like sort of that sort of bland, like, well, there's some issues, but there's still some time to polish it kind of thing.
Or they could fix it. There
could be a day one patch. Kind of, you almost never see... Just
overt
like, this sucks.
Negativity.
I don't like playing this.
Yeah.
Which, like, you did, except I think only Game Informer was positive.
They're more positive, but still not especially positive. And that prompted Warner Brothers to just lift the embargo.
And then all the people's like, yeah, I didn't like this game very much. It was just like, it didn't work.
Like, what the heck?
Like, there are people that I've seen that are like
they like it.
Snyder cult level devotee, like, this game rules, and there's a campaign to hate it and make it. No, just most people don't like it. Yeah. Like, there's no No
one's vindictive towards it.
I wish it wasn't. Yeah. But like, I never thought this looked good, and nothing they ever showed made it look any better to me. I mean,
when they first showed the game,
actually,
graphically it looked good.
Oh yeah, I mean,
but now it's been so long.
I mean that in terms of a game I want to play. Like visually, it looks amazing.
At first, it really looked amazing, but now games have kind of caught up to it, and it doesn't. It's not a stunner anymore. I
think it is still a stunner because it's still. I still think there's. I don't think it's a stunner art direction wise. So I think it's kind of ugly in terms of art direction, but in terms of tech, like visual tech. I think it's up there with.
It's a good-looking game.
Because like
when I first saw it, though, I was like,
it's not like Avatar or anything. It's not on that level. But like, very few games are still on this level. It's still a game that was made for next-gen hardware and the current. The new.
It was one of the first announced games.
Yeah. So I think
specifically was.
I think it still looks real good in that. I think it's ugly aesthetically.
Yeah.
But in terms of the graphical tech, I think it looks great.
Yeah.
They're doing some really interesting stuff there.
Well, not much longer to wait. Again, just a couple weeks away until the game comes out. We'll be talking about it here on GameFace in the very near future.
And I hope the story is somewhat good because, usually the story in these Warner Brothers games are actually pretty good because they get, real DC
writers,
people to get involved and do this stuff. It sounds, needlessly edgelordy so far, but, there's so many leaks and contradicting things about what happens in the story that I think all we really know is what we've seen from the demo. I mean, I do think it's bizarre that that's how they decided to end the Arkhamverse. Like the museum tour of what happened post Arkham Knight is just bonkers.
Yeah, that is bonkers.
Why is that your send off for the why would
Rocksteady want?
Why did we go through all that? And that's how the character ends. What?
Yeah,
why?
I agree with you. Yep.
Why is this not just its own thing?
I don't know.
It's so weird.
They've handled this whole thing all wrong from the beginning. Yep.
Yeah, and even then, I know the Rocksteady person I think the last couple of days was don't expect more Batman games from that's probably not going to happen. It's what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
They're going to work on some random multiplayer.
Even if you're not having Rocksteady do it, why aren't you putting fucking Batman games out?
I don't know. Because they sell like crazy.
And they're still doing something because they just put the patents in Batsuit in Arkham Knight.
I know.
That's a 9-year-old game that just got new DLC. What are you doing?
Weird. It's so weird. I hear you. So anyway, a couple weeks, and we'll be able to find out for good what's up with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Next up, we've been talking about AI a little bit here on GameFace over the last 6 months or so because it's a big topic in games. Developers using AI to develop games. Is it ethical? Is it not ethical? Is it okay to take jobs away from people? We've talked about how automation has taken jobs away in tons of other sectors in business, and people don't care about that, but they do care about art a little bit more. And we just had the big actor strike where nobody could produce any video content, basically. For how long did that strike end up lasting?
That was 8 months.
8 or 9 months, yeah. And SAG-AFTRA, which is the union for the actors, was a big part in that Hollywood strike, and they also play a big part in how games are produced as well. And SAG-AFTRA last week negotiated a deal for using AI to replicate voice or face?
I think it was voice.
Voice. And signed a deal with the production companies without talking to the actors.
Very weird.
They just went rogue, basically, and were like, oh, this is good enough. And now the actors are seeing the deal, and they're like, we never would have agreed to this. No. How do you get away with that?
I don't know. I mean, SAG is usually pretty hardline about, they don't take their job lightly.
Yeah.
And usually they take real stands on what for actors and for even the small, extras. And, there's... you dealing with SAG is the especially as a producer who makes short films, dealing with SAG is the scariest thing.
They're hardballers.
If they decide they don't like you or don't want to give you permission or don't want to accept your paperwork, your movie doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's why coordinating producers, people don't realize, are maybe the most important person on production.
Oh yeah,
most people don't even know what a coordinating producer is, but they're the ones who handle all that crap. And if you don't have a good one, it could ruin your entire production.
Yeah, if your SAG contact decides they don't like you,
all it takes is one slip up, you're done. And so it's shocking to me that they have allowed this to happen. That they would just allow this deal that the actors are not behind.
This will definitely be amended somehow. The actors are not, and some of the big actors are not happy. But they shouldn't be.
I wouldn't be either. You could just use my voice and not give me the money that I feel like I'm worth.
Yeah,
that's
it's
crazy.
A weird
if you're only a voice actor.
Well, theoretically, there's a whole thing where there's they'd have to do this or that we have a problem. It's why don't you just put that language in the agreement?
Right.
It's it's a little too case by case for something that people. And again, I don't know why you trust anybody who wants to use AI for creative means, because it's clearly stealing shit. AI cannot create something new, like by definition. If your AI can look at a bunch of existing art or existing movies or existing whatever and create something wholly new, you've created actual artificial intelligence,
right?
And you A, need to quarantine that shit, and B, need to call the fucking FBI. You've revolutionized computer forever. Like that,
in a dangerous.
You've created sentient life.
Yeah.
Spoiler: none of these AI things do that. They are basically just magazine collages of other people's art.
No matter what that dude at Google tries to tell you.
No. Whatever.
What was that guy's name? He was like, "Oh yeah, we created sentient AI or whatever." And he ended up losing his job over it or whatever.
Nonsense, absolute nonsense. And whatever that's if anyone ever does that, it ain't gonna be Midjourney.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And now they're doing the whole thing. I mean, you had the Midjourney CEO and one of the ChatGPT people being like, "Oh yeah, we can't actually make these things work if we have to obey copyright law."
Yeah.
Well, then I guess you can't make it work then, asshole.
Yeah.
Like what?
So please let us.
And you've still got people
take your.
And you've still got people online that are going on and on about how no, it's not stealing other artists, not doing it. It's like, well, then why are they? Then
why can't they do it without it? Why are they worthless without it then?
Also, anytime anyone tries to talk up ChatGPT stuff for like creative work, script writing, screenwriting, or any kind of art, quote unquote, I mean, really, it's an image pooper, is what it is.
Yeah.
It's not creating art. It's just like creating a collage.
Yeah.
Anytime someone talks that shit, look in their timeline. Look at the other stuff they posted in the last year or two. You will always find NFT stuff.
Oh yeah,
always.
Oh, crypto, definitely.
Because the NFT thing collapsed, and they're on the new grift, and that's AI.
Well, they went from crypto to NFT to AI.
Yep.
It's just
that is the pipeline.
It's so hilarious.
And the trouble is, the trouble they're having with the AI thing is too many people know it's bullshit, and too many people that are involved in these sort of same industry, tricking someone into buying a JPEG of an ape.
Yeah.
Once we've already pre-weeded out the people who can't think critically because they're already buying so many cryptocurrencies. That's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Trying to go to people who do this for a living and have solve logistical problems for a living in terms of production and art and all that, and know what art should be and know how to frame a fucking shot, which no computer knows how to. Like, look at all those AI things. Wes Anderson. First off, Wes Anderson's shots don't look like that. Yeah. Second, they're all centered.
Yeah.
Everything. AI doesn't know how to frame a shot for an emotional impact.
Yeah.
And it never will.
It also doesn't know.
It will look indistinguishable from reality. It'll look photorealistic, but it will never be able to understand why things are. It will never know why things are the way they are. It can only replicate. And that is how you get. That's how you get stuff that's actually as stale and bad as the chuds want you to believe Disney's Star Wars is.
Right. Yeah, it's true.
And to be clear, I don't put it past Disney to try using shit for. I mean, that may happen. Yeah. Like, I'm not saying that.
Well, what we're seeing now with games is games come out and then they tell you, "Oh, we use this. We use AI to make this. We use AI to make." They hardly ever discuss it before the game comes out. Then it comes out. They get called on it because it's not that hard to tell when stuff is built by AI. People see it. They're like, "That's AI," and they're like, "Yep, we did. We used AI for this, this, and this."
And you'll see it more and more. You see, like, look in the credits of current TV shows coming out. A lot of times, you'll see like title sequences or whatever this designed by Midjourney or whatever.
Really?
It's more and more. Yeah. I mean, the Secret Invasion opening credits were AI generated. People freaked out about it because it's terrible. I mean, especially because like that show was terrible, but like that show was about real people being replaced by shape-shifting aliens. Hello?
Oh, the irony. Yeah, I hear you. So anyway, I'm kind of surprised that the games industry has decided to work with SAG-AFTRA instead of starting its own union.
I mean, no actors would really want to join that separately. Probably
you don't think?
That would probably also be...
Even if you only work in the game space?
No.
Because it feels like you would understand better.
It would limit it too much. Because like if you did that, then you'd only be able to work with that union, and there's a good chance that SAG-AFTRA would be like, you're either in our union or not. Or you're with them, and like no one wants to limit themselves to that. Yeah, that's not a career.
It just feels like SAG-AFTRA was just like, "Yep, we'll just take over games," even though it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Well, they're not talking about games for that.
What do you mean?
You mean like, I mean, they're just voice actors.
Right, yeah.
There already is a voice actor guild, and it's SAG.
Yeah.
Like, starting to separate one for games.
Yeah, I guess you're right. For games in particular, the job's the same.
Yeah.
Whether you're voicing TV commercials or films.
Usually the location's the same for that.
Yeah, you're right.
It's all the same recording studios, all the same actors. You don't want to limit yourself. I mean, there have been, obviously, non-union productions back before games were, the original Metal Gear Solid was a non-union job, which is why everybody's name in that cast list is fake.
Yeah.
Cam Clark is there as Jimmy Flinders and all the...
I can always tell AI voice work. Oh, yeah. I can listen to it and tell it instantly. Like, I'm surprised that they feel like this is a viable replacement.
I don't know. I mean, it's going to get better, obviously. And like, if you have permission and you have... if you have a template you're working from and someone has provided that, like, again, like the AI assisted Darth Vader voice is almost indistinguishable from the original Darth Vader voice.
It's when you use it for longer stretches.
But there's through a lot of vocal processing. That is a voice that's custom made. Like same with like I think, I mean, it doesn't have to, but I would think it would be nice, especially now that he's gotten his Lifetime Achievement Emmy Award. At some point, Peter Cullen should probably license his voice to be AI created for Optimus Prime.
It can go on.
So when he's gone, you still have Optimus Prime. Yeah. But again, Optimus Prime's voice goes through about 14 layers of vocoding, which covers up a lot of the artificiality of what... If you're going to try... I mean, the guy in the Prince of Persia game, that the one NPC that they forgot to record lines for, and they just used AI, and now they're going to patch in a real human performance later... Everyone knew that was AI the instant they heard it because it's just supposed to be a person. Yeah. And it doesn't sound like a... I mean, you can always tell on YouTube...
things. They put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable a lot of times.
But you can also tell, like, there's YouTube videos that do it. Like the
YouTube... Probably half of YouTube videos at this point
a lot of them have
are AI voice.
Kyle Hill has a bunch of videos on like fake science videos that a lot of them use AI, and you can tell because they mispronounce stuff, they don't understand jokes. The Finals has that problem. Like there's banter between those announcers that doesn't land because the AI doesn't know how to deliver it. And I guess there was no way to tweak it to do. Like that's kind of part of the key of making this work is you're going to need to be able to tell the AI this is a joke, and you need to deliver it a certain way.
Yeah, a lot of ESL creators on YouTube, English as a second language folks, they're just using AI now. To voice their stuff.
And then there's sometimes you run into people. It's like I linked a video yesterday to one of my group chats, and they're like, "Is this AI?" I'm like, "No, he's just from Northern England." Like, no one from Northern England. The Northern English accent doesn't sound real. I know. It's like that's why they're so over everything. Is they wake up in the morning and they're like, "Shit, I got to do this accent all day." But like, but like that's also it indicates like people are paranoid about it. They're like everyone's that's the tiresome thing is you can't just instantly engage with art now because you have to like have this quick moment of like, wait, is this fake? Is this AI shit?
Yeah, you
like you can't just appreciate. And some stuff, there's some AI things that I thought were fun. Like there was a AI generated series of Star Wars characters giving each other Christmas gifts this past Christmas, and one of them was Princess Leia opening a box that said "Pieces of Home," and it's full of rocks and rubble, and Han's like cracking up next to it. It's like, okay, that's funny.
Yeah,
like, that's a good gag.
Yeah.
You know what would have been better? Drawing it.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, people are like, "Oh, I don't know how to draw," and like it's going to get way better in 2 years or 3 years. You won't even be able to tell the difference between this and drawing. Yeah, but you know what you could do in those 2 or 3 years? Learn how to fucking draw.
Yeah. Yep. And not rely on a computer.
Just saying.
Yeah, that's true. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out because the voice actors are pissed, and it doesn't seem like they're going away. So
no, I think the voice actors will win this showdown in the. I mean, SAG Gen Sense to listen to their members when it comes down to it. So I think this will be fixed.
Okay.
You're right. It's weird that this happened at all.
It shouldn't have happened.
But I think it'll get fixed.
All right. Next up, one of the industry's biggest MOBAs, and if you're not familiar with what MOBAs are, they are games like League of Legends and Dota 2. One of the bigger ones in the industry is a game called Smite. It is a third-person, over-the-shoulder MOBA, a little more action-oriented than a lot of the other MOBAs are. It has its own kind of niche.
Yeah, it was one of those games like, maybe this is the MOBA that'll hook me.
Right. Nope. And they announced, finally, after like a decade, they announced Smite 2 this week, which is kind of crazy, first of all, to release a sequel. They should have called it
Smote.
Smited. Yeah. Which is weird because generally these games don't get sequels. Yeah. They just keep building on top of them, or they may like completely overhaul the visuals at a certain point, but they still don't change the name of the game. Well, Hi-Res Studios has decided that it does want to do a full-on sequel called Smite 2.
Did we learn nothing from Overwatch?
What'd you say?
Did we learn nothing from Overwatch?
Exactly, yeah. And the thing is I think most fans would be okay with it, except we've just found out that the cosmetics that you bought in Smite 1 will not carry over to Smite 2.
You poor deluded fools.
Hi-Rez said that it would take 256 man-years to convert all the cosmetics that are already in Smite over to Smite 2. I do not believe that at all.
Well, if you hire 1,000 people, that's like 3 months.
Right, exactly. I mean, right. That's what you're saying. He's saying with our 5 dudes, it will take 256 years to release it all. How do you feel about this, Matt? Do you think this is a right move? Do you feel like once you get involved in a franchise like Smite, that anything that you buy there, you should just have it in perpetuity? Because, let's be honest, everyone's probably going to eventually move on to Smite 2, and they're going to leave those old cosmetics behind.
I mean, I don't think it's imperative that happens, but I do think that if you're making a game like this, you have to recognize the reality that people get attached to their stuff.
Do you think most people, when they play games like this that are ongoing for like a decade or more, don't you think that most of them assume that like that stuff's just going to be there forever that they're paying for?
I mean, I don't know if most people... I think if most people are doing that, then most people are hopelessly naive.
Yeah.
Because that's just not how anything works.
Yeah, I mean, nothing's forever.
Maybe they just don't remember that like MMOs have come and gone, and pay-to-play games have come and gone. A lot of those games that people threw... where's Farmville these days?
Right. Yeah. Maple Story.
Yeah, it's just... but not RuneScape. That fucker won't go away.
It won't today.
I was thinking about that this week actually because City of Heroes is back.
Yeah.
Got an actual the fan server got an actual license from NCSoft, and now you can go play it for free.
Yep, which is great.
Which is cool.
Yep.
But like, you can't. It'd be like expecting your old characters to still be there on that. It's just.
I think some people would expect that would be the case.
Those people are dumb. In this case, it's just like, this just seems like. It doesn't seem like the issue is with the players. It feels like the issue is with the company. It's like, do you not understand the reality of the product you made? Like, you have spent all these years getting people attached to these characters and attached to these cosmetics and giving them a reason to want to pay money and
because the game is free.
Yeah,
that's the thing with these games. The game is free. The only thing people pay for are the cosmetics.
Like, the attachment to your game is based on the ownership of these things and the customization and what they've earned in this game. And if you don't think it's important to carry that forward, then you are the one who's out of touch.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they pay for it.
It may not be feasible. They may be right that like it would be very difficult for a team their size to actually do that. But it's like if you weren't building this with this in mind from the beginning, that's on you.
I mean, it's kind of the cost of doing business, isn't it?
Yeah.
At this point for games like this,
like, what did you think the outcome?
Right.
I mean, you're back at the Duh Consulting Agency again.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm not I'm not
up.
saying it makes it feasible. I'm not saying it's reasonable for people to expect that. But like, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. And we could have told them that easily. We could have told them that.
Yeah. So,
which is why you just probably don't release a sequel.
Yeah.
You just keep building on
what
Smite.
you got. And I understand the temptation to make something bigger and better, and we can do this now, and we need to change engines for it, or we need to like completely overhaul or revamp to the degree that we couldn't do it in the original game, that kind of thing. But like, I mean, maybe at that point you just make a new game. It's not Smite 2. That's just like another game by you. But I know they want to just switch to this new one and only maintain one game, because now you're in that same problem where we don't have the manpower to maintain 2 of these at the same time.
The other thing too is like Smite 2. It's like one of those like Fortnite style games where they have this art style that can scale down very easily to run on weaker consoles, on weaker rigs. It is built in an Unreal Engine. But it's not like you look at it, you're like, well, damn, you could never do that on, like, last-gen No. Like, it's not like the overhaul is so drastic that it makes sense that they couldn't redo all the cosmetics for it. I don't know.
I mean, it sounds like it's just a time thing. Like, it's not like you could redo all the cosmetics.
An investment.
It would just take forever.
Yeah, exactly. They're not willing to invest the money to bring in enough artists to redo all the skins and all the stuff that people have paid for. I mean, what's going to happen, I think, is people just aren't going to play Smite 2.
Yeah.
They're going to just keep playing Smite. The first one.
Yeah. So the question kind of becomes, like, are you going to shut Smite 1 down?
And try
to force it, in which case...
That would be,
I hope everybody's got their resumes updated, because...
Again, call the Duh Consulting Agency, and we'll tell you what to do in that situation. And it is definitely not that.
It also just seems like a weird move. I mean, I understand the desire to make something new and exciting and cool looking. I actually think the first one looks a little better.
In some ways?
In a couple of these comparison shots.
I agree.
I thought the characters in the first... I wasn't until a couple of those comparisons. I'm like, I thought the ones in the first one look a little more detailed.
Well, they just look like... I don't know, more endearing.
Yeah, there's something more.
There's more stylized.
Yeah,
and like
I can tell who they are more.
Yeah,
I don't know what else.
It's kind of like Transformers movies,
right.
where I see Optimus Prime and I'm like, that's not Optimus Prime. That's not the one I know.
Like I recognize the head, but that's
about it. Yeah.
Like he's red and blue. But,
right. Yeah.
I mean, they didn't even want to make him red and blue.
Really?
Because red doesn't show up on film very well. It's hard to shoot.
Which is true.
Which is why he's only got the red flames and mostly he's blue.
Yeah.
But it was basically like Hasbro that was just like, he's kind of got to have some red on him, so that's why he's got even a little bit on him.
Interesting.
But you'll notice in robot mode, he is all the red gets hidden except on like his feet and like right up on the flames.
Yeah, interesting.
But like it's also weird because it's like Smite feels kind of like a little minor miracle. It's like you carved out your own space in this incredibly competitive zone of gaming, and like, maybe you should just like be cool with that.
Yeah,
you know, like
I mean, it's a money making machine.
Yeah, like the infinite growth thing, like has trapped way bigger companies than Smite's people. Like, it feels like you're falling into this trap of like, we have to keep making it bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Sometimes it's like, hey, why don't you just be cool making a few $1 million every year?
Yeah.
Like,
yep, I hear you. Because sometimes you end up doing things like this, and you end up losing all the money.
Like, I know the narrative in modern, like, finance and capitalist stuff and kind of investment and all that is, like, in tech especially, is like, oh, just risk it. Just go for it. Just go for the thing. Bigger, 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 to the moon. Da, da, da. It's like, you know what? Don't Rock the Boat has its fucking...
Charms.
Especially in this, like, a hyper-competitive, like... established space like the MOBA world,
where
like,
you're
just fucking keep your head down
in third place.
Yeah, like just
you're not going to make a move
doing what
and
you're
topple Dota or League of Legends.
No.
That's not happening.
And do you not see what Overwatch is doing?
Right,
like
killing itself.
I mean, this thing with Overwatch where they just made it so all the characters can heal themselves. And apparently the reason, so like they want,
it takes a whole class out of the game. It takes a whole section of people out of playing the game.
So the people who play Overwatch have said, the reason they did that is basically the changes and the behaviors and the way everything has been shifting. It's Overwatch 2 has become an incredibly toxic community to play in, and the first people who left were the support classes because they get abused the most by people in game.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So the reason this change is happening is because no one wants to play a healer anymore because they just get yelled at the whole time.
Yeah, I can understand
that, and it's like, and like, you know what that is? That is a very giant red flag on the slow slide into a dead game.
Yeah.
And it's just weird that the Smite people
aren't learning, letting Overwatch learn the lesson for them. Basically,
if you can't bring again, it's almost like if Switch 2 comes out and you can't bring your fucking library forward,
right? Which we're going to be talking about very shortly. A couple more stories in housekeeping before we get into the bulk of the show. First, Stalker 2 was delayed again today. It was delayed until September 5th.
Did it have a date?
It was Q1 2024.
Okay. I don't think I ever expected that to actually happen.
Look, we're going to give that crew as much leeway as they need. Like, they're from Ukraine. They're still developing the game in Ukraine. I don't know how that's happening.
I thought they moved to, like, Czech Republic or Chechnya.
I think they still have some people working in Ukraine, other people.
Because they had to pack up all their stuff and basically flee west.
Right.
As I recall.
Because they were in Kyiv, right?
Yeah, they were right there.
Yeah, right in the heart of
They set up somewhere else after a month or so.
Yeah. So these guys have been through, and girls, have been through the ringer, obviously, dealing with Putin's invasion of their country. I'll give them as much time as they need. I'm not a huge fan of the first Stalker, to be all that honest with you. I'm not.
The thing about Stalker,
waiting with bated breath.
I mean, I'm interested, but the thing about the original Stalker is that the original Stalker is really good if you mod it to within an inch of its life.
Yeah.
And I'm not 100% convinced that a vanilla version of Stalker 2 is going to be something I want to play, because that first game is really hard.
It is hard.
All the Stalker stuff is really hard.
And they say that this one is going to be the same.
Yeah.
That it's going to be really challenging.
It's true to it. But this is going to be one of those things where I'm going to get it on PC. We're going to do the PC Game Pass thing. I'm probably going to throw whatever mods into it I need to like play it like a fucking normal person who isn't an expert at all the survival stuff. Because when I played the original Stalker Clear Skies, I don't think I lived more than 10 minutes.
It's really hard. It's kind of like the Dark Souls of first-person shooters.
I think it's way harder than Dark Souls.
Yeah. I don't know. To me, it feels
because if you die in this game, you just die.
Yeah,
like you don't get back up at the fucking campfire and someone tells you to get out of here, Stalker, and you go back and pick up your shit.
No, you're right.
This is just like, nope, you're done.
Yeah,
like, that's it. And there's no warning. You just got to be ready for anything.
Yeah.
Which is like, again, it's a thrill in that regard, but again, it can be very frustrating if you're if you just can't figure out what you're supposed to do next. And because it's such an open sandbox, it's never going to really tell you what to do next.
Yeah. Don't forget, this is, I know it's hard to remember because it's been so long, but it is an Xbox console exclusive still. And this is another Xbox, and we'll talk about Xbox in next week's episode, but this is one of the games of 2024 that's supposed to come out to be a part of their exclusive repertoire. But again, even if we hear in August that it's been delayed again into 2025, like, this game can be done whenever it's done. That's the way I look at this game. I hold it to a different standard.
I think if they're picking a specific day, it's probably pretty solid.
Yeah. Yeah, they did actually pick a specific day, September 5th this time. And you're right. That usually is a sign that they're like, okay, we're giving ourselves enough leeway that we feel like we can make this specific date happen. So I hope so. I hope that's the case. What a monumental effort to develop a video game under the circumstances that team has been working on this game. Just, I don't know how you concentrate when you're being invaded by a butcher.
Well, it's a big country, so
it is.
They're far enough away that I'm sure they can pretend.
I mean, it does blow my mind sometimes that you see parts of Ukraine that are just kind of like going through life.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big country.
It really is. But it's just hard to believe. Like, it's like us living in California while some other, like, Canada has invaded Maine. Like, but you just go about your day working every day while other Americans are being attacked. Like, it's just insane.
I mean, you got it. I mean, that was the home front back in the day.
Yeah.
Back in the World War II.
Yeah. But this
you never would have known, other than the fact that nobody had spare tires. You know?
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, a reprieve for the Stalker 2 development team. Again, they can get that game done whenever they get it done. I'm totally cool with it. And then just finally, before we move on to the heart of episode 372, a reminder, and I talked about this last week, but I just want to remind you again, that on Thursday, there is the first Xbox Developer Direct of 2024. You'll be able to see Hellblade 2 in, I would assume, in full bloom. I think we'll probably see a big chunk of gameplay of that. We're going to see the first, like they said, there's like an 8-minute presentation for Indiana Jones. That's what leaked out. That's pretty awesome.
Makes me wonder if it's this year.
Me too. And then Avowed, I think, also is going to be shown off. Really, kind of for the first time. We've got, 2 trailers of that game so far?
Like a teaser and a trailer.
Yeah. And so we'll finally get to see, I'm assuming, gameplay of Avowed as well, which is also, I think, going to be one of Xbox's big games of 2024.
I think it's one of their linchpins, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, if you're an Xbox fan or an Xbox Series owner, big event for you on Thursday. And as always, we will have it curated and ready for you to watch at sifted.net, along with our awesome community there commenting on all the big stories from the event. And with that, I think we're finally ready to kick off GameFace 372 in earnest. But before we do that, here's a word from our sponsor, LS Cream. LS Cream is a fine cream liqueur created by fellow gamer and sifter Stevens Charles. It's inspired by an ancestral recipe from Haiti called Cray Mass, and a double gold winner for its original taste at the New York Wine and Spirit International Competition. LS Cream can be enjoyed on the rocks or as a mixer for drinks with its rich blend of fresh cream and neutral grain spirits with notes of coconut, vanilla, cinnamon, and nutmeg. It's great in coffee or to make espresso martinis. To learn more, discover amazing drink recipes, or to track down your own bottle using a handy store locator, head to creamls.com/sifted. That's creamls.com/sifted. One thing I will say is that winter is here for most of us. Not for Matt and I, although kinda. It's been cold here. It's been like 50 degrees at night here, which I know you guys are like, whatever, but that is cold for here.
I got down to the 40s, or low 40s a couple times.
Over the holidays, I think it was, when I wasn't
like
here.
Last week.
Oh, really?
Very cold.
I didn't realize it got that cold. So we're kind of going through winter here, but most of y'all are going through winter, where it's like balls cold and snowing.
Frozen, and people are frozen in their house at this point.
Right. And if you
I saw a video of a guy trying to get his Tesla Cybertruck open because it was all iced over, and he finally breaks the ice, and the handle finally pops out, and he still can't open the door because it's all ice shut, and then the handle can't go back in because it froze back out, and it's breaking it, and he just goes, "Oh no!" That's the end of the video.
Because those are like $80,000 for the base model or something.
Yeah, well, and like fixing that, like it's this,
you can't fix it.
It's the dumbest wiring system ever, because like he's like, oh, there's so many wires in a normal car. Why don't we just have everything be on like 3 Ethernet? Like, so if anything goes wrong on one line, the whole line doesn't work anymore. You have to replace the whole line, like, or like half your electrical system doesn't work anymore.
That's crazy.
Dumbest shit.
Yep. Well, what I was getting at is if you're living someplace that is it's cold right now, one thing I love about LS Cream is that it mixes great with cold drinks or warm drinks. And so if you're out shoveling your driveway or you're just out running around in horrible weather and you come home, you want to relax, you want to warm up, you can mix up awesome drinks with LS Cream that are warm and delicious. Hot cocoa. Put a dollop or two of the LS Cream in with your hot chocolate. Delicious. So lots of applications for that liqueur. It works in almost any situation. Yeah. Valentine's Day is coming up soon.
Especially since y'all not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Not in that weather.
That's true.
If you can get LS Cream.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if you live in Pennsylvania, you can't, unfortunately, unless you order it online. So go to creamls.com/sifted. You can find there where to buy it online.
Yeah, make someone else drive in that weather.
Exactly. Exactly. You can just have somebody deliver it right to your house. Or if you want, you can get links to where you can buy it online. It is an amazing liqueur. It's very versatile. It works in so many situations. I love LS Cream. You should too. All right. Let's get on with GameFace 372. We're going to kick things off with Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown. The first Prince of Persia, Matt, in almost a decade. Mm-hmm. I think the last one was The Forgotten Sands in 2010. Is that right?
Sure.
Which would make it 13 or 14 years.
Almost 14 years, yeah.
That's kind of surprising. Even with Ubisoft, which will leave IP to just sit there.
There was sort of a thing where basically Assassin's Creed replaced Prince of Persia.
Yeah.
Because it was originally going to be some Prince of Persia stuff. And sort of like that was by 3 years into the Assassin's Creed thing, they realized that
it's a little redundant.
It was redundant, so let's just focus on Assassin's Creed. And I guess some things changed.
Well, so they brought it back. And to Matt's point, I feel like you're right. I feel like they needed to delineate it from Assassin's Creed in some way. Mm-hmm. And I feel like they maybe struggled to figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
And I think what they figured out was, you know what? Let's just take it back to the roots of Prince of Persia, making it a 2D game that plays in a side-scrolling fashion. Now, one thing I will say, Matt, is that people are calling this game 2.5D. But honestly, I kind of take exception with that. Like, the half D doesn't really come into play at all in this game.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the sense that you can interact with stuff in the background a little bit.
Like a little bit?
And
it just makes it awkward, though.
But when I think 2.5D, I think of things like, I don't know, Klonoa, where you're walking and the path sort of moves in and out of the screen.
Yeah, you actually move into the screen at times.
Yeah, I mean, this game could do that, but it doesn't really.
It doesn't. Yeah, there's like pots that you can hack and slash and get like gems from, but...
Yeah, I mean, it's like if you think 2.5D is just like a 2D game that's done in polygons, then that's what it
is. This is a
game
that you play in 2D, but it's built with polygons.
It's a 2D Metroidvania.
Yeah, it's a Metroidvania. It's a Metroid clone, so to speak. And I will say this, Matt. I do feel like, in addition to side-scrolling platformers, I feel like the Metroidvania is another genre that I'm kind of starting to burn out on.
Well, it's funny that, like, you know, for years and years, there weren't any.
Yeah.
And then when the indie game trend started to hit, people started to mess with the idea. You know, you had Axiom Verge and a couple things that were popping up. It's like, oh, they're doing their own thing. That's cool. And now it's like there's dozens every year. And now the trick is finding the ones that don't suck.
Or the ones that try at least something new.
And I would say this is one of both of those.
Yeah. One, it doesn't suck, and two, it actually does manage to find a way to do something new. Yeah,
there are things where you're like, okay, clearly I'm going to get an air dash at some point. Clearly I'm going to get a bow and arrow at some point. Like you can see, you know, where you're, but that's not necessarily bad Metroidvania design because you do want to, you know, I can't get to this thing. It's clear to me now what I need to be able to get to it. And I understand that's part of the trope of the genre.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, like there's stuff you don't expect. Like there's a real robust combat system in this game. Like this is maybe the best combat in a Metroidvania ever.
As far as the hacking and slashing,
it's fighting game level complex. Once you get more moves, like early on, but eventually, like you can get through all these boss fights without being touched. If you're good enough. And like the counter stuff is real smart. The color coding is real smart. I came into this with that whole, you know, because you had people talking, like, oh, first game of the year candidate. I'm like, All right, it's January, people. Can you fucking calm down? But you know what? I mean, it depends on how good or bad this year is. But like, I can see this being in the conversation.
Maybe.
Like
that may be a bridge too far for me, but it's still good. I mean,
I'll say this much: this is better than Sands of Time. And I would rather have had this than the remake of Sands of Time. And matter of fact, I bet one of the reasons this got done before Sands of Time is Sands of Time's remake. Probably they're trying to figure out a way to make it not feel like a bargain basement Assassin's Creed in modern standards.
It's possible.
The combat in this is vastly more interesting.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. But you don't get, I mean, you do get the time manipulation stuff in this.
Yeah, it's definitely from the same franchise.
I don't feel like it's as stunning as it is in Sands of Time.
No, but like Sands of Time isn't stunning anymore either.
You're right. It is like, old in the tooth or long in the tooth at this point.
This is Prince of Persia made with the effects and influence and legacy of Sands of Time taken into account.
Yeah.
Whereas remaking Sands of Time, I think, would be a much harder proposition to try to make it feel fresh.
I agree. Yep.
Because going back to replay Sands of Time without nostalgia goggles, I think is a tall order.
It feels gimmicky.
It's gimmicky and a little boring. At the time, the combat was cool, like flipping over guys and freezing them and doing that. But now, like, every game has more interesting mechanics than that.
The other thing too is that there's not enough of them. Like, it gets very repetitive pretty quickly. There's just not enough different attacks and animations in the game. But again, it's a game that's over like 15 years old at this point.
Yeah, it's longer than that. Was that 2004?
I guess you're right.
It's 20 years old.
Almost 20 years old. Holy crap. That's crazy. Innovative at the time, but not so much now.
Yeah, but that's not its fault.
Yeah, that's true.
But like I like this feels like it moves the thing, but it goes back to the roots while still moving it forward. I'm very impressed by.
They've done a good job for sure. You play as a brand new hero named Sargon. He is a member of a warrior clan called the Immortals. And basically, the entire gist of the game is that you travel to the cursed city of Mount Oath. You're trying to rescue the kidnapped Prince Ghassan. And I think if you really think about that, you can probably figure out also what's ultimately going to happen in this game. Mm-hmm. But I digress. The plot is not what kept me going. I guess I'll put it that way.
No, although I do like the characters.
Yeah, for the most part, this game is kind of like an indie game, though. You get like the talking head with the text
clearly
stuff.
They liked Hades.
Yeah,
the way
it is very much like
the
Hades.
way the characters interact in the conversation like that. Also, like they're basically a superhero team.
Yeah,
like they're basically the ancient Persian Avengers.
And you fight alongside them every once in a while. Yeah. There's some cooperative elements with the CPU that you play through at times.
Likeable. I believe there were immortals in Persia, like in the Persian Empire. It's like in 300 they are scary bad guys,
right?
But this is a different.
They're basically like the X-Men.
Yeah, they're mercenaries, but they are essentially the Avengers.
Yeah,
and sure enough, they kind of end up avenging some shit in this. That's their job, and they get trapped in a mountain that has time travel in it, which is a hazard of the job, I guess. Early on, he's just constantly meeting characters. It's like, oh, you're trapped in the mountain.
Yeah.
Time looks weird here. People from round there aren't from round here.
Yeah,
and it's just like, all right.
An hour for you, 3 years for me.
I'm good. It's like, oh, you should take this very important thing. It's like, oh, yep, this is Metro. Yeah, I know, Metroidvania. Okay. And, oh, I have a compass. How convenient. Yeah.
Yep. Well, as Matt said, it is a Metroidvania, and it does have the trappings of the Metroidvania. You come across doors or areas that you can't traverse or get past or open, and then later on you get some ability or some power up.
And it does have a nice system of marking places. And you can even
the innovative part.
You can not only mark a place on your map where there's something you can't get to yet, you can screenshot it.
Yeah.
So when you look at it on the map, it shows you a picture of what the thing you can't get, which is great.
Yeah. What's that feature called?
I can't remember.
Time crystals or something
like that. Yeah, it's I can't remember what it's called, but it's like if you hold down on the D-pad and you just basically take a screenshot and mark the map.
Yeah,
you can do that. You can have 15 of those markers on your map.
It seems really innovative when you first start doing it. It is a cool feature, but is it really any different than like looking at a Metroid map and seeing the door that's colored the one color? You need to go there eventually with your new powers.
But it's nice to be able to see it and realize, like, oh, I need this thing for it.
Yeah, you won't waste your time in this game because you know exactly what you're going to do. There are times with, like, Metroid games where I'm like, wait, I haven't gone through that door yet. do I have the thing that I need? And I'll go all the way there to realize I don't have the thing yet.
It solves the Metroid problem of like, okay, I got the new item, I fought the boss, got the new item, and now I guess I have to go.
Now where do I go?
I have to go to all the places on the map where I clearly haven't gone further because I don't remember where the thing, or I didn't know this item or this ability existed in the game, so I wasn't mentally noting where that is. So
it's a very simple thing, but it is effective, and it does work, and it does innovate the subgenre for sure. Like my guess is most Metroidvanias going forward will probably now have this feature.
I would definitely like Metroid to take me. I don't know if Nintendo doesn't tend to take cues from other people, but it'd be nice if the next Metroid had something like that.
And then it has a lot of like action RPG elements. There's a lot of upgrading of things, but it's not like you have a gigantic skill tree. Like everything has like a couple levels of upgrade.
It's not like XP or it's not like Symphony of the Night. It's more like
you collect
you collect amulets. You collect like these crystals, time crystals that basically let you upgrade things and get you more health or more whatever.
Yep.
It's simple but satisfying.
Yep. There's these things called what are those golden trees called actually? Whack trees, yeah. So there's whack golden trees, and you save at those as you would expect, but that's also where you go to change the amulets. So you have a necklace, and then you can attach amulets to it, and the amulets basically just give you buffs.
Yeah.
And like when you start, you can only have 3. As you go through the game, you can get more. Like my amulets are now like all the way around my necklace at this point. And they're all just like buffs. Like it gives you 5% more damage in the air. Or it gives you 10% more damage when you're on the ground. Stuff like that. And you can adjust which amulets you have equipped at the whack trees. Which is a little bit annoying. You can only adjust those and this other ability called Athra Surges, which are these special attacks that you have where you build your meter all the way up. And then there's 2 different levels there as far as building your meter. And then you can unleash your Athra attacks after you build up your meter. And then there are amulets that you can equip that help you build up the Athra meter faster if that's how you want to play. And I would argue that's probably the smartest strategy. Because the first couple Athra things you get one like devastating sword attack, and the other one is healing. And like what I found is in boss fights, as long as you use that Athra healing at least once, like you can beat most bosses in the first or second try. The other thing I would say too about the boss fights is like be patient. If you go in, you're just like, I'm going to hack and slash this guy to death. You're probably going to die over and over again.
You got to watch for the openings. Dark Souls has influenced far and wide.
Yeah,
and that's part of it.
Yeah, and so you can block and some attacks. So yellow attacks you can block and you parry them, and it's right. You just say it right there. It knocks them back, and then
it's blue. Blue does that,
right? And then it opens them up for another attack.
The yellow attack is basically an insta kill.
I thought the red was the instant kill.
Red can't be blocked.
Red can't be blocked.
Blue is a regular block. Yellow means you get a cinematic
a stagger.
Attack. Usually it'll kill them, but if the boss, sometimes it'll just take a lot of health off.
Yeah.
And red can't be blocked. You have to dodge it.
You have to dodge it or slide. I slide my ass off in this game.
Yeah.
Because it's way easier than timing the block. You can just slide underneath enemies at will in this game. Like, I think it is governed by the Athra meter, but...
No, it's not.
It's not? So you can just slide as much as you want?
I mean, as long as the animation ends.
Yeah?
Like that, you're limited by the recovery frames, basically.
Okay. I thought there was a meter, actually, that stopped it, but no?
Not that I've seen.
Okay.
It's never stopped me.
Okay.
Anyway. I slide like a crazy person. So.
Me too. I'm sliding like a fool. And then one thing I will say, Matt, is that so the Athra trees are also where you go if you die. And there have definitely been times in this game where you go venturing out and you don't have the map unlocked and you're just going through territory blind. And you just don't make the right turn here or there. Like a lot of times the whack tree will just be tucked away like just one off screen, like one step or whatever. But I'll go past it and keep going in the wrong direction and die and then have to go all the way back to that whack tree. And from then I just start trying to find the next whack tree because I'm like, I'm not doing this again. Like I'm not going all the way to this area of the map and dying and being sent back again.
A Metroid tradition.
It is a bit of a Metroid tradition. But I did find I ended up doing a good bit of backtracking in this game, and it's easier the second time because you know where the enemy placement is. The other thing too is you leave a screen and come back, all the enemies respawn.
Let them come back, yeah.
That to me is something that I'm not a big fan of in Metroidvanias in general. Particularly some of the enemies in this game can just be annoying.
Yeah, some of them are tough.
Yeah, and like Sometimes you die. It just happens.
Early on, it was one where I respawned. I opened a shortcut back, but the shortcut was full of like really hard enemies. So I just kept going back through there. And like he doesn't have a lot of health at the beginning.
No,
like basically 3 hits.
3 hits and you die.
That's about it.
Yeah.
And so I just kept. I'd go in and fight the monsters, and like if I got hit, I'd go back to the whack tree and go back. I'm like, I'm gonna learn the timing on this one way or the other. And like that was where I learned to parry properly.
Yeah.
Because it really does help.
They're powerful in this game.
Yeah.
Parries.
The other thing that I thought I think is interesting in this game that I don't see in Metroidvania as much is you can knock an enemy out of the room to the next screen and go to and they're still going to be there, and they'll follow you to other rooms. Like the rooms are not barriers in this game, which I think is pretty cool.
Because you're right, in other Metroidvanias, you can almost cheese the game.
Yeah, you leave the room and you're fine. And I did that the first time. I'm just going to run past you and run through the other door and run through the other. And I look down and all of a sudden he's getting hit. I'm like, what the? Oh, they're all in the room with me. I'm like, oh, that's neat. I've never seen that before.
Respawning enemies, though, I was pretty pissed off about it. I have to admit, I'm not a big fan of that in these games.
I didn't mind it because like, I like to farm the time crystals when I want what I want.
Because you use those to upgrade most of your stuff. So there's value in doing it for sure. So if you hit start and go to the menus and you go and look at your character, there's basically 3 things. You have life, gear, and powers. Life is like health flasks, and you can upgrade it so you have more than 1 health flask. And there's these things called Soma Tree Petals to increase your max health. Those are really rare. Like, increasing my max health with the Soma Petals took forever, but it does happen, and you can do it. As far as the gear is concerned, you have dual sabers, which you see in this B-roll, and eventually later on in the B-roll, you'll see that
there's a memory shards.
Memory shards, yeah. Yep, that's what you need to take the screenshots, basically, of the different areas where you weren't unable to traverse through. So your gear, you have dual sabers. Eventually you get a bow. You also get this weird device that like bounces off of things, and you use that to like flip switches generally and solve puzzles with it. And then the powers, you have 6 different time-based powers. Like the first one you get is just the ability to like air dash or whatever. And then eventually you get the ability to like make platforms materialize that you can then jump on. And I'll say this, like some of the platforming in this is hard.
Yeah.
Like they really work through those mechanics. Like the thing that you throw to flip switches, like there's like areas in this game where you toss the thing to flip the switch, and then the platform you're standing on takes off. You need to jump at the same time and then tap the triangle to pull back the thing so you can throw it again. It becomes this like hand contorting. This game gets hard eventually, I feel like. Like, I was challenged playing this game at several points. It's not too difficult in the first 5 hours. At the 5-hour mark for me is where it really started to, like, torque it up a little bit. And I had to really start concentrating, even on, like, rank and file sections of the levels.
This is the room I practiced in until I got it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Against these weird lion things?
Lion things.
Yeah. So, your basic abilities, you can jump, you can slide, you eventually get the air dash. As we talked about the parry is a huge part. It also helps build up Sargon's Athraglow, and that, as we said earlier, that's the meter that allows him to pull off his specials. And then he can also be equipped with talismans, and those alter his abilities as well. As far as combat is concerned, like you basically just mash square for the hack and slash stuff. The triangle brings up the bow if you tap it. But if you hold the triangle, that brings up the other like shield thing that you throw to flip switches. And that mechanic is a little weird to me. Like I struggled at times to throw an arrow versus like holding it down and using the shield that you throw. I don't know what that thing actually is, but it looks like a blue shield.
I mostly, my only control issue was I kept mixing up what the right shoulder buttons did. Early on, it was slide versus counter.
Yeah.
And I kept mixing the two of them up for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I'm used to having dodge on a face button, I think, is the problem. Because the slide is both a traversal thing, a dodge thing, and if you continue holding it, your dash.
Yeah.
So, like, I think they put a lot on that right trigger, and I don't know. I
mean, dual uses for any button is always dicey. And the triangle is dual use.
I don't love that you got to dash before you run.
Yeah, me either.
It would be kind of what I'd say.
We have to slide before you run.
Yeah.
It does this weird thing where you slide and then you start running. There are some caveats with the gameplay in this, I guess is the best way I could kind of sum it up. You do get used to it after a while. Like, now, I can pretty much fire my bow when I want.
You can do, like, some crazy dances. I've seen clips of people doing 100, 200 hit combos.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's just the system's there.
Yeah, you can master this game and get really good at it, like impressively good at it. Like you said, where you watch someone else play and you're like, oh, that's how you play the game when you're really, really good at it. But I feel like the platforming in this game will put you through your paces for sure.
I mean, it's true to the original. It's clearly paying homage to the original, and I mean, you can even see it with like the running over spikes that then pop up a second later, like that's from the original game. Like,
it is, yeah.
Like this is Prince of Persia playing it, which is a nice
for sure
thing.
Here, the amulets we were talking about. They're basically things you just attach to your necklace. At first, you can only have 2 or 3.
2, but you can buy another slot very early on.
And as you can see here, at this point in the game, I have 5 slots. So you keep building them up, and I have even more than that now in the game that I'm playing. So those are the amulets. And this is kind of the B-roll where I go through like a lot of the systems. We just want to take a minute to kind of show you guys what we're talking about. There's the whack whack tree. Oh, I didn't leave that one up very, very long, unfortunately. So there's your surges. So this is the stuff that you can pull off once you've built up your athrometer. And this is early on in the game, so I only had 2. You have the air dash, and then you have the healing that I talked about earlier that, again, are very handy in boss fights. And again, that's the whack whack tree where you save. Here's a shop where you can buy stuff, and like you can buy upgrades at this shop in addition to like brand new items as well. There is just several places where you can go in this game to level up. Here's another one. So this eventually, like when you're back at home base, this separate area is a forge where you can increase the power of your weapons, or you can forge brand new weapons. And a lot of the weapons that you're trying to forge have very specific materials that you need that will send you off on these really hard sections of the game where you just collect one resource and bring it back to the forge, and they forged it. For example, they gave me this new amulet when I brought back this one material. Getting that material was hard, and all I got from it was an amulet that I didn't even equip.
It's a good amulet, though.
It is a good amulet, yeah. But there's so many opportunities to upgrade your character and your gear in this game. I wouldn't call it an action RPG. I wouldn't go that far, but it's pretty extensive. Like I was pleasantly surprised by how much of that stuff was in the game ultimately. What else do we have to talk about? Boss fights. There's tons of them. Like lots of mini bosses. And then if you defeat the big bosses, which
it's funny because like early on you're like think you're fighting all these bosses, and you get to the first actual boss, you're like, oh
yeah, this is the boss fight. Those were just mini bosses. Yeah. If you defeat one of the major bosses though, that's when you get one of the new time-based abilities. So they do reward you for making it through those tougher combat sequences. What else is there to talk about? Oh, there's fast travel. There's Homa statues located throughout. I wish there were more of them.
Yeah, fast travel is a little sparse.
Yeah, I wish there was more of it, because you do end up doing... It's a Metroidvania, so you are going to do backtracking. That's just the nature of the beast. However, it takes a while, first of all, before you can fast travel at all. And then once you do unlock it, it takes a really long time to get, like, extra modules that you can fast travel to. So I wouldn't count on that being a primary traversal mechanic in this game. It can be handy at times.
Yeah, they want you to move. Yeah. They want you to get there on your own.
It is a Metroidvania, so I can understand that.
You can fast travel to basically zones.
Yeah.
Like you can't fast travel to locations.
Just locations. That's a good way to put it. Yep.
I think about being able to fast travel from like Bryn Star to one of the other locations. Like that's about it.
Yeah. Yep. And then there's collectible items all over the place. I haven't really figured out what the purpose of those are. Have you?
Like the Persian soldier crests
and the
stuff?
tablets and stuff. Like I haven't figured out what you use those for.
I mean, they're clearly side quests of some kind, but if there's a place that tells me what the payoff is, I haven't found it.
Yeah. Well, there you see me use the bow. Eventually, you'll see me use the blue shield thing that I was talking about earlier in this later B-roll. But there are collectibles throughout the game. Sometimes they're hard to see. They're just like this little, like old school Resident Evil style kind of like white starburst that if you aren't paying attention, you can kind of overlook at times. As you play the game, you train your mind to start looking for them. But like I noticed, like when I started going back through areas that I had already been through, that I had missed a bunch of them when I went back later on, and it kind of trained myself to look for them. And overall, I mean, I've enjoyed this game. I'll say this: I like it a hell of a lot more than Metroid Dread.
Oh yeah,
a hell of a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
Like this game
that's not saying
head
anything.
and shoulders ahead of Metroid Dread.
For me, that's not saying anything though. I didn't like Metroid Dread.
However, I do not like it as much as Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. which is Iga's replacement for Castlevania.
I would probably agree with that, in part just because I think the theme, like the setting and theme, is more interesting in Bloodstained.
The theme is better. The other thing, too, is I feel like the power-ups are more interesting in Bloodstained.
Bloodstained's power-ups are a little crazier.
They're more combat-focused.
Yeah, this is a little more... I mean, because they're trying to keep the kind of the platforming and puzzle trap elements of the franchise here, like in play and in forefront as well. Like, the weird thing about this is that combat is so prevalent in it, whereas Bloodstained is combat was the core of Castlevania until they made it a Metroidvania.
Yeah,
and it still was a pretty big deal. So yeah, I don't know. I would kind of argue that they're very different takes on the Metroidvania formula, to the point that I wouldn't really put them up against each other the same way. But I would say this probably has a little more in common with those kind of 2D demakes of Bloodstained.
Yeah.
The Curse of whatever's.
Yep.
As opposed to the main Bloodstained game.
Yep.
Also, it's just two different things. I think this is more actually directly influenced by Metroid, whereas Bloodstained is obviously trying to Castlevania.
Absolutely. Yeah. No doubt about it. The other thing I was surprised to learn, Matt, is that Bloodstained Ritual of the Night has outsold every Castlevania game ever.
Wow.
Yes.
Makes you wonder what Konami's doing. Just sort of letting it happen.
Yeah.
You see that? I'm sure you saw the Simon's Quest alike game, like with the Transylvania Quest of the Simon. Or
the 8-bit. I mean, it's basically just Castlevania. It's a straight up ripoff.
But it's like it's Dracula. You can't fucking copyright Dracula.
I know.
Well,
dude, Mickey Mouse just became a part of the free domain.
Well, the Steamboat Willie, but go ahead and try it.
Yeah, I mean, as long as I think the caveat is, as long as you can prove that it's not something that Disney would do with it. You have to make it really transformative and different.
You have to make it transformative, and it has to be the Steamboat Willie version of it.
It can't be the new Mickey Mouse.
But eventually there's a guy who started a webcomic that basically continues the story after Steamboat Willie.
That's illegal.
No, it's going.
Really?
Yeah.
I bet you they shut that down eventually.
They can't touch it.
Really?
Because it's a transformative, continuous work over something that has no copyright.
I thought it had to be completely different from what they had done with the property.
It just has to only be based on Steamboat Willie.
Interesting.
So the version of the story that he's telling only takes from Steamboat Willie. It's just the aftermath of Steamboat Willie with no relation to anything else Disney's ever done with the characters.
I must have read it wrong when I was reading a story about it. 'Cause I was surprised learning that Mickey was in the public domain. I was like, what? So I read a couple articles
because
about
he's not. Steamboat Willie is.
Yeah.
And that particular version of Mickey Mouse in that cartoon. So is Plane Crazy.
But the press
cares about Plane
says Mickey Mouse is in the public domain.
Don't believe the press. Read the actual law. It's like
I did, though.
It's like the Winnie the Pooh thing. You can't put the red shirt on him.
Right.
But you can use the Winnie the Pooh from the illustrations of the book.
Well, see, that was the example that they used, though, because the one big thing that Winnie the Pooh that they did was like a horror thing with Winnie the Pooh. And that's how they pointed to, that's why it's okay. Because Disney would never make a horror movie about Winnie the Pooh.
Right. But you could also do your own children's book about Winnie the Pooh and they couldn't stop you.
I thought that they could.
Well, you could if it looks like the Disney version of him, or if it used characters that are not out in the public domain yet. For instance, Tigger was not in the public domain until this year because Tigger didn't appear until the following year in a second book.
And now he's the new killer.
And now he's the new killer. But they're doing another Blood and Honey.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it must have done all right. Yep.
It cost them like $5 and a Coke.
Right.
So yeah.
Yep.
Sure. I mean, there's the same. I mean, you saw how instantly they had all the weird Mickey Mouse stuff ready to go. They're doing a horror movie. There's a fucking Phasmophobia style game with him in it. Like there's a Resident Evil game with him in it. Like as long as it's the Steamboat Willie version, they can do whatever they want. And it's stupid. It's dumb. Like it's kind of the thing. It's like, okay, well, I'm
trying to cash in.
Sure, glad we have all these inspired works to draw from now. It's like, okay, like,
are you happy with this? Is a new Prince of Persia? I am. Yeah, I think they made the right choice.
Yeah,
I think this property may have died if they hadn't done.
Yeah, if this is. I mean, I don't expect them to make big 3D epic adventures anymore, but if this is what it becomes, that's great.
Yeah, it is also. I think it's like a $60 game. It's not $70.
$60. It's full price. It's $70 if you get like the collectors, whatever. I think, with
but it's not a $70 game. It is $60. It's a little cheaper.
And early on, I was like, $60 for this thing? But then you play it and you're like, oh no, this is a full-fledged game.
Yeah,
this is a
I mean, there are some corners that are cut. Like I said, like the cinematics, the conversations, those are very indie game-ish with just the the images with the text and that kind of stuff.
Somewhat, but they are lip synced.
Yeah,
which is
and there
nice.
are legitimate cinematics as well.
Yeah, there's full of cinematics. There's full cinematic kills. There's full. There's a lot happening. There's a lot of enemy detail variety. The bosses are all very different. They put in
lots
a lot
of
work.
bosses.
The only issue I have with any of that is that there's one of the immortals is the archer guy. Is it the archer? No, it's one of the sword guy. But he has like half of his face is covered by like a bronze sculpture. Like half his face looks like a bronze like Assyrian sculpture, and that switches sides depending on which side of the screen his character portrait pops in on.
Interesting.
And I'm like, hey,
so they're basically just mirroring the image.
Just leaned him this other way. I don't know.
Instead of
that.
redrawing it, they just flipped it.
Yeah,
it's better than AI art.
But the thing is, like, you don't even need to redraw it. You could just have him lean in the other direction with this. I mean, you don't need to flip him for that. Like, it's just that doesn't happen with the character model, obviously, because it's a 3D character model. But like, I just thought it was weird that they did that.
Yep. And you can tell, like, it's obviously not pushing the hardware because it does run on Switch and it runs on pretty much everything.
Although there is a weird problem. I haven't run into it, but there's a key item. There's a key item. It's literally a key.
Yeah.
And on a bunch of people's systems on PC, as soon as they got the key, it dropped from like 120 frames to 90 or 80, and they don't know why. Like, just getting that item
really
for some
weird.
reason tanks the frame rate.
Whoa. That's crazy.
So, like, people are trying to figure out what happened there.
Yeah, interesting. But otherwise, it runs great. But it is available for Switch and pretty much everything. And so it isn't, like, bleeding edge graphically, but it's stylized. The art style works. It looks a little bit like Fortnite.
I would argue it looks about as good as any of these 2D Metroid games do.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's top of the line for its subgenre.
Yeah.
No question. I mean, the animation's top notch.
Yeah. It does have a little bit of an indie game vibe to it, I would say.
Yeah, just because it's 2D, I guess. But
2D, the graphics aren't bleeding edge, but
there's nothing wrong with that.
But it plays very well. Yeah.
It ain't no indie game. It's made by Ubisoft.
Right.
You know?
I'm just saying, well, we can go back to the spirit of what an indie game is, or if it actually is an indie game, which it's not because it's made by Ubisoft, but it has those vibes to it at times.
Sort of, but I don't really think of it that way because to me it's the direct descendant of Metroid, which is the opposite of an indie game because Nintendo made it. You know? Like there was a time when this was the mainstream stuff.
Yeah. But that was like 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
But it doesn't, no indie game Metroidvania looks this good.
That's true. Yeah. Except for I think Metroid Dread probably looks better.
But that's not an indie game.
Yeah.
Bloodstained.
Well, this isn't either.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like this is head and shoulders. You can tell it's not an indie game because it looks so damn good.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, there's some 2D pixel art Metroidvanias that look
really good for what they are, but they don't look like that.
Yeah.
Like the production value on this is a head and shoulders.
Yeah, they invested a lot more money.
Above anything except maybe Bloodstained, but even Bloodstained doesn't have the in-game cutscenes.
No, you're right. No, you're right. Absolutely. Yep. That absolutely is an indie game for sure.
Oh,
Bloodstained. So anyway, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Do you recommend that people buy it, Matt?
100%.
I think you have to. I would say
it's the best game so far this year because it's the only game I've played so far this year. No, it's great. If you look at this and think like, yeah, that looks cool, like Prince of Persia to me, like you'll like it. If you like Metroidvanias at all, like this is great.
Yeah.
This is a great one. And it doesn't have any fucking ME sequences, so it's better than Metroid Dread. That's for sure.
I liked it a lot more than Metroid Dread. Not even close. I think we've done a pretty good job describing it today. I think people know probably whether they'd be into it or not. I would say you probably need to be a pretty big fan of Metroidvanias to enjoy it. Because it is, and it's a little bit more of a combat-driven Metroidvania versus like puzzle-driven or level design-driven, things like that. But I think you know what you're getting into at this point after you've heard us discuss it.
I mean, the only thing that would hold me back from it would be like there's a ton of shit coming out in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, and you're right. And that's why I do struggle a little bit to recommend that people buy it. Here's what I would say.
It'll be around.
Yeah.
You know?
I would go watch Dossier, if you haven't watched it already, to see stuff that's coming out at the end of the month. And then maybe to start poking around and look for release calendars for the first couple weeks of February, because there are pretty big games coming all the way through the end of January and the first couple weeks of February.
Yeah, I guess I would admit that if I was really not doing this show, and I was just playing for myself, I probably would be like, well, this does look cool to me, but I'm about to dive into Infinite Wealth. Yakuza.
Tekken 8, Infinite Wealth.
No, I would just be like, I'm going to play Infinite Wealth like a month.
You're right. I mean, that game's going to be big.
Like, instead, I'm going to have to play a little bit of that and then force myself to play Tekken 8 and Suicide Squad. But, like, in a realistic situation, like, that Infinite Wealth would be all I'd need until probably Q2.
You're probably right. I mean, that game, I'm guessing it's probably going to be 50, 60 hours long.
Yeah.
That game looks insane, by the way.
Yeah.
I actually can't wait to play that. I'm really excited for it.
No, I think it's definitely the most interesting release of the first quarter to me.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. And that's coming soon, too. So just all things to consider. I'm happy with what Ubisoft did with the IP, though. Mm-hmm. Like, it's headed in the right direction.
It kind of blows my mind now that people complained about this when they first revealed it.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, I don't know what's...
I think now
this is pretty great. This is probably what they should be doing.
I think its Metacritic is like an 8. Mm-hmm. That's a little high for me, I think, but...
8? No, to me, I'd say that's low.
Really?
I would put this in the 9 range.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I would not. For sure not.
I think this is great.
Oh. For me, it would be like high 7, mid 7, something like that.
No, wait. I think that's way too low.
Wow. Interesting. Okay. Well, there you go. A little bit of a difference of opinion, but not the spirit of the game. No. I think we agree on the spirit of it for sure.
Yeah. I'm not saying this is going to come back in the Game of the Year conversation in December, but it's just like... this is the best Prince of Persia game, not just in the last 10 years, because there's been nothing else that came out. I'd put this in the upper echelon of the franchise.
I'd agree with that. Yep, I would agree with that. So there you go. That's Prince of Persia. The Lost Crown is available for everything, and it is $60. And I think it's $60 on Switch as well, right?
I think it's 50 on Switch.
Oh, it is cheaper?
I think it's cheaper on Switch.
Okay.
I might be wrong.
I
don't have it on Switch.
There aren't many $70 games on Switch, so that actually might make sense. If every other game is $60, chop the $10 off to $50.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was 50 and 60 for the deluxe.
This is where the chat's always awesome, and you guys aren't there. I told Matt before we started the show that I feel naked without you guys on the show. Seriously, I feel weird not being able to call out to you guys for like fact checking and stuff. That'll be fixed for next week's episode. Don't you worry about it.
No, it's 50 for the standard game, 60 for the deluxe.
Okay,
so
there you go.
That's about right.
Yeah, it is right.
I guess you look at the game, and I do think it does, like especially in screenshots or just in instant impression, it does have the indie feel. So there might be an element of like 50 for that, but it's worth it.
I think it's worth it. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that at all. So there you go. It's Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, available for everything. Matt and I say, at the very least, if you like Metroidvanias, you should definitely pick it up. Next up, we're going to preview Nintendo for 2024. Right now, we only know like first half of 2024 for Nintendo. All the games that we know that we're about to go through, all of them are currently scheduled to come out before the midpoint of the year. I'm assuming here in the next month or so, Nintendo will do some kind of a direct or something.
Yeah, maybe. They don't really need to until like April.
They don't. A lot of it. So we're going to start this discussion.
They've got the first half of their year sort of locked down, so they don't really need. They would do some stuff to like promote specific games, but in terms of announcing a bunch of new stuff, they don't need to do that for another 3 months.
You're right. You'll see when we start getting to the games that they pretty much have at least the first quarter booked solid, and pretty much the first half of the year booked solid with a wealth of exclusives, more already than we have for PlayStation that we talked about in last week's episode.
And yet it still kind of feels like they're tap dancing until the Switch 2 gets announced.
Right. And that's where we're going to start our discussion today. We're going to start discussing the Switch 2, because in 2024, there's no bigger Nintendo story than the follow-up, the successor, if it is, to Nintendo Switch. Now, we do have a couple clues already.
Now that the Game Shark people blew it for them.
Right. Well, as it turns out, they were talking out of their ass. They came back and were like, no, we were just guessing. So there is a new Game Shark, by the way.
Nintendo's lawyers with their knives to our throats are telling us that we were guessing.
Yeah. There is a new Game Shark, by the way. It's like an AI-driven cheat
AI
system. Yeah, it's like AI Shark.
I have seen, in the aftermath of G4 shutting down, 12 years ago.
That's crazy to think about.
I was looking for new jobs and new things, and one of the things I continually ran into in terms of like biz dev stuff was everybody was trying to make like an AI app for the next gen systems that was going to be a cheat app that was going to like detect when you sucked and say, hey, do you want help, basically. Especially on the Xbox One, the OS for that was supposed to be custom designed to be able to support things like that. And every single time, if I asked too many questions, I just made them mad. I'm like, well, how would that work with it? They're like, we're just gonna have to figure that. That's what we need you to. I'm like, well, I'm asking you that because there's no way to do that. So I want to know how you solve that before I sign on for this shit. And I did not get those callbacks.
Funny how that worked.
As soon as you ask too many realistic questions, they don't want to hear about it.
Yep.
But this has been a thing. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if I haven't done any really digging into any of this. Wouldn't surprise me if whoever's like the executive on top of the heap for this thing is one of the guys I had one of those meetings with, because this has been an obsession with a certain segment of biz dev forever.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't need an AI to tell me when I suck at the game. I know when I suck at the game, and I have Google for that.
Yeah, exactly. Or the games even tell you now, if you die 3 times in quick succession, a lot of games will say, hey, you're getting your ass kicked. You want to drop down the difficulty?
Would you like to solve a puzzle? I mean, I don't really run into that. My thing is always like, I don't know what you want me to do.
Right.
Like, I don't know what the puzzle is asking me to do.
Yeah.
And so I'll just like Google it and figure it out. I get that way. I don't know if the AI is going to be smart enough for that.
I doubt it. I doubt it.
But at any rate, they said basically that we can't wait to relaunch in September alongside the new Switch. And everyone's like, what?
Yeah.
Like, oh, we were just like, you're integrated in the new Switch, and you accidentally are just making up. Come on. So
you think that's real?
I think that's real.
Interesting.
I think they backtracked because Nintendo said, "Would you like to still be on our fucking platform, you dumb shit?" People at CAS were playing fast and loose with some. I mean, there was the people that did the AI Mario interactive thing where it didn't sound like Mario at all. It was like this AI. It's a me, Mario. It was like, what the?
And there's no way that was sanctioned by Nintendo.
It wasn't sanctioned.
Oh, it turns out it wasn't.
No, they admitted it. The next day. Wasn't. I'm like, the Nintendo lawyers are aware now.
How could you do something so dumb?
Apparently, it was not sanctioned by the top of the company. There was people in the booth that decided to
went
do Mario.
rogue. Oh my.
That's what I read anyway, allegedly.
And they were dumb.
So I don't know what happened beyond that, but I assure you that shit is on Nintendo's radar now.
Yeah. I do not place a lot of faith in the September thing. Like, that company seems so out of touch with what's going on in the industry. Like,
well, the thing is, though, I'm sure they're out of touch with the stuff in the industry, but I guarantee you that if they're on the Switch too, they know when that comes. They know when they need to be ready.
They would know,
and some idiot decided to just not realize, because that's one of those things where it's like, I don't know. Look, I don't personally know how you get to the point where I know you talk about this all the time. You know it's your deadline. You know when you need stuff to be done internally. You know that this is what you're working towards. But at no point do I ever forget who I'm talking to when I'm talking about NDA shit. Like, it's just like, how... Like,
that's why I just don't believe it's real.
No, that's why I do believe it's real.
Like,
because
they had to have signed an NDA.
They did, but they're stupid.
I mean, how can you be that dumb?
I don't know. Look what they're making.
That's a good point. Okay, so here's what
At least some of the people in that company own Bored Apes.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that much. Yeah. So that's what you're dealing with.
Well, here's what we know. As far as the rumors that we've heard so far, that I trust at least over 50%, is that it's going to be the same console handheld hybrid. Yeah. It's going to be a Switch.
Why wouldn't it be?
It has a dock that you plug it into. I wouldn't be
Nintendo is not the Smite developers. They know where their bread is buttered.
Although I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't need a dock. Is there some other kind of a thing that you plug it into to plug it into the TV?
I think it's going to have a more elegant.
Yeah, right. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Like, it's probably not going to be a big
hunky chunky piece of plastic
toaster. I kind of I do agree with that. I think it'll still have a literal dock,
right? Something that you need to plug it into so it plays on the TV.
Yeah, it'll look less like
it might just be a freaking HDMI cable or something. Like,
there's going to be a place
with a dongle.
No, it'll be something you place it on to charge it as well. I mean, it has to be that. It has to charge the system.
True. Yeah.
I just think it'll be more elegant than a weird toaster.
Okay. Remember it. Don't forget, the dock initially scratched the screens of the Nintendo Switch. In fact, it scratched the screen of my launched Nintendo Switch, and mine just sat in the dock and never moved. Mm-hmm. Just sitting there, barely rattling back and forth, scratched the screen of my OG Switch, which is kind of crazy. So we know
mine hasn't been out of the dock in literally years, so I don't know if it scratched my screen.
So it's a Switch, we know that, and we're pretty behind that idea that it's a hybrid.
Yeah. Also, if they don't call it the Super Nintendo Switch, they are morons. Like, that is, I will bet cash money it has to be called the Super Nintendo Switch.
That could be our next bet.
It has to
now that the Steelers bet is over. We have another running bet that goes on GameFace. I don't want to step on Easy Allies' toes. They do a bunch of betting stuff on there. I don't even know how it works, honestly.
I don't think Easy Allies owns betting.
It just seems like it's kind of their thing. I don't know.
It's betting.
I know.
It's not like the Fantasy League. You invented that, but that's different.
Yeah.
That's a concept. Betting has been around before Easy Allies was around, I guarantee you.
I still think people would be like, oh, you're trying to take their idea. But nobody does that for us with the video game fantasy leagues. So anyway, we can agree that it's another Switch. It's a hybrid console. And the other thing that I'm pretty much convinced of, that has come out is that it will have
Bring that guy back too. I want to see that man's hair again.
Do you want me to bring it back?
No, I say in the Switch 2 videos. I want that actor to come back because I want to see what his hair looks like. How funny would it be if they did it all
meta and they actually brought back the same people that they used? That would be kind of. That's way too clever, though. That'll never happen.
Also, those kids are like 18 now,
right?
So.
That's a fucking. It's been like 7 years. If you think about it. And then the other thing that I think both Matt and I are kind of behind is that it has the power of last gen console. It's going to be like a PS4,
yeah,
like an Xbox One in a handheld form factor, which is still pretty impressive.
Which is fine. Yeah, I mean, it's not,
I think that'll be good enough.
If you're expecting anything else from the successor to the Switch, I don't know what planet you're on.
Yeah,
like that's fine.
Yeah. What else do you think we might get though with it?
Like, what's their big
there's going to be
big dumb gimmick
do you
thing?
Think with that, or do you think there's going to be a new Joy-Con?
I mean, I'm sure there'll be some kind of streamline or like kind of modification of the Joy-Con, but I'm pretty sure they're going to use the same thing.
Even with the issues that they've had with the drift and everything.
Yeah. Well, because you're going to have to be able to play Switch stuff on it.
I wouldn't be surprised if they remake the Joy-Con so that you can replace the stick housing in some way.
That would be nice.
I feel like controllers are kind of heading that direction because who wants to have to take returns?
Maybe they'll do like a deluxe Joy-Cons that you can do that on.
Right, they would call it deluxe. That's exactly what they would call it. But I mean, Nintendo doesn't want to have to keep this. Is what a hassle it is. Constantly getting people sending you their Joy-Con that you either repair or replace. Like,
I
no
don't know
one
what
wants
else
to do
you
that.
do with it because like they've packed so much stuff in those things that barely gets used. Like so much of that stuff is
the IR thing.
Almost no one uses that, and I don't mean like gamers. I mean like
developers.
They just don't use it. But, you know,
WarioWare.
Most Switch games are just games.
Yeah, they are.
You know.
Yep. And it would make it cheaper to make the Joy-Con. They'd be like, look, if you want to go back and play these old Switch 1 games, use an old Joy-Con.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be compatible.
Yeah, I mean, but it won't have like the IR, maybe some of the other stuff in it, like 3D Rumble or whatever the hell that was supposed to be. Which
that never really worked out.
Whatever that was.
I hope the Pro Controller carries forward because I'd rather not have to buy another one of those.
Yeah, and look, I can't see chat, but Matt can. If you guys have any ideas on what you think might be included on the new Switch, feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll share them here on the show. Because you guys are pretty creative in your own right, and you guys might be able to come up with some pretty cool ideas.
They think that it's powerful enough now that they could like be implementing some kind of AR stuff with it.
Okay.
I'm not sure how that would end up working. I mean, it's true. It is powerful enough to do something like that if it's in the PS4 realm.
Yeah.
But like, it doesn't seem like Nintendo's thing.
Well, they remember, was it the 3DS that they sent out with the AR cards? Mm-hmm. Which I still have somewhere. Yeah. So Nintendo has dabbled in AR before, but you're right. It's not like a crux of what it does.
Never really embraced it.
I don't think Nintendo would do that. Like I think it to your point, the Switch plays frickin' games.
Yeah.
I don't think Nintendo wants to get away from this gimmicky crap that it has to kind of keep up with, and like we're making fun of like 3D Rumble right now. Like,
yeah, I think they want all the abilities the Joy-Con provides. Like, because sometimes they do use things like that.
Yeah.
But it really, the Switch is where they finally relearned where their bread is buttered, and that's in the games.
Like, really all it needs.
Games. You don't need the Wiimote. You don't need the Wii U gamepad. You don't need the heart sensor. You don't need, just make games.
Yeah.
Just make,
it works.
You know what fucking worked? Super Mario Odyssey.
Right, yeah.
You know, like Super Mario Wonder.
Yeah.
Tears of the Kingdom.
I mean, even their flagship games like Tears of the Kingdom, it doesn't use the Joy-Con all that much.
No, like as long as you have like the aiming with the controller, that people
the gyros.
I don't like it, but I don't like it very much. But as long as you have gyro aiming, I think everybody's happy.
I agree. That's all the new Joy-Con need is gyro aiming. That's it. That's pretty much it. So we'll see, but my guess is there'll be some kind of a tweak on the Joy-Con controller. I don't think it's just going to be, hey, just plug your old Joy-Con right into the new Switch and it works lickety-split. They might. But I think there's going to be a new advanced take.
There will be some kind of advantage to having the new Joy-Con, whatever it is. Like there will be a reason to have the new. I mean, it'll also come with a system, so you're stuck with it. But like,
how big do you think the hard drive is? The storage space? Because it's a joke right now, and they just make you buy the SD card.
I think you're going to have to buy an SD card.
Me too. I think it'll be like 32 gigs on the system or whatever. Maybe not even that, probably.
Yeah, something like that. Like
8 gigs or something.
Maybe more like 64. I'll say 60. I'll say it has 64 built in.
Okay.
Because I think the OS is going to have a footprint.
Well, the other thing too, right now Switch games are nothing. Right. Like Tears of the Kingdom is like 5 gigs or something ridiculous.
Also they have the advantage in that if you buy a physical copy of a Switch game, it doesn't actually install it to the hard drive.
Right.
It actually runs from the cartridge.
Off the card. Yeah.
The only system that does that right now.
Yeah, you're right.
So that is nice. I do like that. That I don't have to have Zelda installed.
Will there be cards?
I think so.
I do
I
too.
think they keep all that the same.
Yeah.
And I think the SD card, especially for a portable thing, I think the SD card is the right way to go. Because if I want to go out and get some huge, crazy SD card,
I can.
That's my and it's a lot easier than fucking opening the PS5 up and sticking a new hard drive in it. You know?
I agree with that. I just hope that they have a little bit more onboard storage.
I think they will, just because the games are a little bigger. They're going to be a little bigger. Well,
that's the thing
OS
I was getting at.
I think it's going to be like proportionally equivalent to what the Switch 1 has.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Like right now, it's not that big a deal that they have a small hard drive because their games are like a gig or 2 gigs or 5 gigs or whatever. That's all going to change once they start making games that try to even be 4K.
Right. But at the same time, it's like this SD card thing is the right way to go with that because you can get like a decently fast 256 gigabyte SD card for like $17.
I know, it's insane.
You know? Like, so that's. I mean, I think that it's not a Vita situation where they're like holding you over a barrel because you have to buy
proprietary expansions,
thing, which those things are still obscenely expensive because nobody has any of them.
Yeah, well, they're not manufacturing.
It's not making them anymore. So if you want to save a game on the Vita, you got to go buy one. It's like $500.
It's nuts. So anyway,
if you need money real quick, go sell your fucking Vita memory. Like, how nuts is that?
I also think an Ethernet port will be built into it. That's a part of like the OLED switch or whatever. That wasn't a part. Wait, did the first dock have Ethernet in it?
Well, no, it didn't. You had to use the
dongle.
You had to use the dongle from the Wii U.
Right. Yeah. So I think this Switch 2 will have an Ethernet port built into it natively. What do you say?
The Wii. You had to use the dongle from the Wii.
From the Wii, to make it work, And now the OLED model of Switch has an Ethernet port. I think Switch 2 will also have an Ethernet port.
I think they learned their lesson on that one.
Yeah. I think they learned a lesson on the storage a little bit, too. I agree with you. I think we'll get both. I think we'll get a bigger hard drive and the option to expand.
I think the bigger hard drive is going to be proportionate to the bigger game. So, like, you're still not going to be really able to store more than a couple games on it.
I agree.
So, but it's just like that's how it goes.
Yeah, it's better than having to buy like this proprietary like drive thing for PlayStation 5, where you got to make sure you have the heat sink installed, or then you have the proprietary Xbox ones, which are nice. You just plug them in, but still, you can't just go buy like those cheap. It's like they're still licensed and blah blah blah.
Still 100 something, 200 some cases. If you want the big one, SD cards, simple.
Yeah, so I think that's the right way to go about it. So. What else can you think of that you might see in the Switch 2? We covered controller, interface. Oh, we obviously agree that all games are going to be able to be played on Switch 2. Yeah, it's going to be backwards compatible with all Switch 1 software.
Your whole library will come forward. No, you don't have an option with that anymore.
Yeah, all the other accoutrement from Nintendo Switch Online, I think that's going to all go forward.
It'll all be compatible. I mean, both systems will exist alongside each other for years.
This is a big deal, though, Matt, because remember, Nintendo has made us rebuy this stuff over and over and over again.
Yeah, but it's only in the last couple generations that, like, everybody's finally figured out that your account needs to carry forward. I mean, Microsoft was the first to really piece it together.
Yeah.
But your account needs to be able to carry forward everything you've spent money on.
Yeah.
You know, they know the lesson that Smite 2 is learning already.
Yeah.
And they can throw hundreds of man hours at it.
Yeah.
So.
I think it'll be seamless. I think you plug in your Switch 2 and it just plug in your Nintendo Online account.
You load your account in and everything's right there.
Sucks it right down in. You know, none of the goofy. Remember,
install
like
whatever you want.
The goofy, like, was it upgrading from Wii U to Switch, where it had this animation that showed like all your Mii getting on a plane?
Oh, that was Wii to Wii U.
Was that Wii to Wii U?
Yeah.
It's just so bizarre.
Or like the download on the DS or the 3DS was just like dropping little cubes.
Yeah. I don't think we'll see any stuff like that.
It's so funny. Like, it's so funny how Nintendo always felt the need to like make the internet seem so friendly. It was like AOL or like eWorld.
It can't just have a meter.
Like,
it's got to have like.
It's like we need to have a little mail truck drive up and be like, "You have mail." It's like, guys, just
I mean, I kind of like that about Nintendo.
Like, it definitely was its brand. It was on brand, but there's an element that was like, guys, how much faster would this go if you weren't playing a fucking graphic the whole time? Like, just...
Hey, check chat real quick before we move on to the software and make sure someone else hasn't posted any ideas for Switch 2 hardware.
There's some skepticism over full backwards compatibility, which I don't think is accurate.
Why are they skeptical about it?
Because Nintendo's never done that before.
Oh, okay.
Which, I mean, you're right, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And the Switch and the Switch 2, I don't think are going to have... I mean, the main reason I think some of that was the environment of the OS environment and the hardware was so different.
The account never carried over. I mean,
this account will migrate, so it doesn't make sense to
and that is what tells me that is going to happen. Is Nintendo has the one thing Nintendo has messaged about Switch 2, is that the Nintendo account is going to carry over.
Yeah, my Nintendo account works on my 3DS still. And, and that's more or less sort of talk, which actually reminds me, I got to resubscribe to the Pokemon mailbox thing because I'm about to lose all my old Pokemon.
All right. I
I
forgot about that.
That's been like a half a year since I forgot to renew that. I got to do that right now.
Yeah.
I got to transfer all my rare Pokemon back into the games.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I would say with 95% certainty that backwards compat's going to work.
Yeah, there's no way. There's no way they make you lose all that stuff.
That would be a huge ball drop.
Oh, crazy. Crazy.
We would definitely be roasting them here on GameFace, that's for sure. Anything else that they had for hardware?
Not really. No. Achievements or trophies.
Oh. That's an interesting idea.
They don't seem very interested in that.
Well, they do it on a game-by-game basis. They have, what are they called, like stickers or whatever? Yeah. Like, some games will have achievements.
Yeah, it's sort of like that, but it's not the same thing.
It's not the same. Well, it's not a universal.
There are games that, like, the Xenoblade games do have achievements in the game.
Right.
They're
that's
just
what I'm saying.
System-wide.
Right. System-wide achievements, I mean, I think that's something Nintendo fans have wanted for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. So it might be worthwhile.
Some speculation that because the Steam Deck and other things have shown that like you can have a much more expensive, powerful console, that they might be willing to put the price higher. Like I see that.
That's our final guess is what the price is.
But like also like Nintendo also knows what they've been successful at price point wise, and there's no reason to mess with that.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. What do you think it's going to sell for?
I think it's over 300.
300. I'm going 4. Because the Switch does sell for 4. And this is going to be more advanced hardware-wise.
The Switch is 4?
Well, it was. Like, now is it...
I would not have bought the Switch if it was $400.
Was it 300?
It was $250.
250?
At launch?
Was it?
$250.
Really? How did I forget that?
I don't know. That was definitely $250.
So it's $250 now still for the OLED, and then $200 for the OG Switch and for the Lite. The Lite may be like $170 now or something.
I don't know what the Lite is anymore.
Yeah.
$170, $199. Launch was $300.
$300. Yeah, I thought it was an even number. So you're right. It probably... Well, no, it might be $400.
I think it'll stay $300. I think it'll be $300. Maybe $350, but I think $300 is your sweet spot for a handheld system that's powered the same as a system that came out.
I agree with that. That doesn't mean Nintendo will do it, though.
No, it doesn't. But I think that price point is where they've been super successful, and that's what they need to do. Like, I mean, they know that that's where their bread is buttered. Like they'll make it up in software. It's
hard to argue with the success of the Switch.
Yeah.
So you're probably right. Like Nintendo's probably looking at like, you know what? There's certain things that we did with the Switch that we should just need to do again, and that might be one of them. The price point, because there's really nothing more important than the price point. So you may be right. I'm still going to guess 400. Because again,
I think 400 is suicide. Like,
I don't know, man. There's a lot of Nintendo loyalists out there.
It's too much.
Yeah.
It's not, the hardware doesn't cost that much.
It's still way cheaper than PS5 and Xbox Series X.
It's $100 cheaper. It's not. Yeah, that's not way
still
cheaper. 300.
2 games.
Be 300.
All right, we'll see. So you're saying 3. I'm saying 4. What's chat saying? Are they saying anything?
300.
Yeah.
Cheapest Steam Deck's 350. So 350 is kind of where you could go there and be sort of position yourself alongside the Steam Deck. But I also like this. Even the weakest Steam Deck is more powerful than what this thing's probably going to be able to do.
Probably, yeah.
So unless you're really trying to make up the cost of whatever's in the Joy-Cons, 300.
Okay.
Gotta be 300.
All right, we'll see. So there's our preview of hardware from Nintendo in 2024. Obviously, the successor to Switch. I think 100% think it's coming this year.
Yeah, I would think so. But was it Billzebub 13 says 350, same as the current OLED.
Okay.
I mean, 350 for the new one, drop the OLED to 300.
Yeah,
that could be.
Yeah,
but 400, I think 400 is that's a red zone.
It's a step pretty far, that's for sure.
$400 for a fucking Nintendo system, that's crazy. It's no way. No way.
That would never happen. That would be unprecedented.
I mean, we will pay $400 with the bundle and all the all the shit you'll have to do.
Yeah, that's not what I'm talking. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but the system itself, I cannot see them going over 350. That would be nuts.
All right, let's start talking about some software from Nintendo for 2024. As we said earlier, it has a schedule of games that's coming out here in the next 6 months, and then it just ends, which might lead you to believe that around June, July, August might be when the next Switch is coming out.
Yeah, I don't think it's July, but I think September.
So you think that date?
I think September is probably accurate.
It probably is. And they may have just been guessing
it
too.
Gives you the big launch thing. It gets you all the main the launch games out. It lets it sell out, and it gives you a month and a half to re-up
for the holidays.
Make another wave to put out for the holiday for Black Friday, and then you might even get another production wave out before Christmas.
Right before Christmas, yeah.
Just like the N64.
Yeah.
So the N64 came out in August.
Yes. Was it? I thought that was September 9th. No?
Maybe it was September 9th. I remember...
No, I'm thining 9/9/99. That's where I'm getting September 9th. Yeah.
But I remember... I knew some people that had it... Because I didn't get that till Christmas that year. But I knew some people that... We were playing Super Mario Brothers at the end of August.
I walked in on launch day and just bought it. I didn't pre-order it or anything.
Because we were playing Super Mario 64 before I went back to college.
Yeah.
Which would have been Labor Day weekend.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, that might have been... That was also a time when things broke, street dates showed up a little early. There was no concrete release date for stuff.
No, you're right. It was a little nebulous for sure. All right, let's start talking about the games. As we said, we have games pretty much leading up until the midpoint of the year. First up, the first game to come out that is a Switch console exclusive is a game called Another Code Recollection. This was in Dossier as one of the 10 games that we recommended checking out for the month. It comes out like next week.
All right. I liked these games on the DS.
Did you play the second one that only came out in Japan?
I did. Because I think it was in English, or it was not that hard to play without understanding.
These are like detective adventures. Yeah. You don't need to understand the language all that much to play them.
I mean, you do because they're visual novels. But if I remember right, the Japanese. It was like Phoenix Wright. There was still an English version. Or what was it?
There was an English language option.
The sequel to Hotel Dusk.
Oh yeah.
Maybe it was. Maybe I got the European version. That's what I did with Hotel Dusk sequel.
Huh.
I can't remember the name of the Hotel Dusk sequel, but it was like the sequel only came out in Europe.
Okay.
And when I was in Europe, at one point, I specifically went to a game store and bought that.
Okay. Well, this collects both the games into one, and they've been gussied up because these games were what, DS?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they obviously did not look like this when we played them back in the day.
Step up.
It's a huge upgrade visually for these. But this is 2 games in one. It comes before the end of January. A slow start for Switch. It's really the only, other than third-party stuff, it's the only exclusive for Switch in January. So you might want to check that out. Again, it's called Another Code Recollection. Next up, Mario versus Donkey Kong. This is also I would call this probably it's probably a remaster, I guess.
Oh, is this not new?
No, this is a remake of was this a GBA or a DS?
They were on GBA. I thought this was a new game in this series.
No, it's a remake, remaster, whatever you want to call it, of the original game. Obviously, huge upgrade as far as the visuals are concerned. But this is for those of you who aren't familiar with it is a puzzle platformer. Like, the platforming in this isn't about, like, wow, here's a bunch of really difficult jumps I have to perform. It's more about, like, as you can see in the B-roll, just using your brain to figure out how to get from point A to point B.
Man, there's so many remasters and they're just marking time.
I know.
The new system.
It really is. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much all Switch has. You'll see here as we keep going through these games, almost all of the games that are scheduled for Switch to come out are like this. They're like an old game that they've revived. We just got Super Mario RPG in, was it November or December that launched? November, I think.
November, yeah.
Yeah. And that was kind of the beginning of this, and now that's pretty much all we're getting is remakes. I mean, if this opens up the development resources for Switch 2 launch games, I'm all about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's better than putting nothing out.
Exactly. Which is what Nintendo would have done for the last, 4 consoles that it's released.
Yeah, we remember the Wii U.
Yeah. This is coming out on February 16th, so not much longer to wait, just a couple more weeks for this to come out. Again, this is already available on GBA. It is an older game. Did you like it when you played it the first time?
I don't really remember it.
It's kind of a Lemmings-like almost game.
It's a puzzle game. I'm not a huge Donkey Kong fan.
I'm not a huge puzzle platformer guy,
I don't mind them, but
than Captain Toad.
Donkey Kong doesn't appeal to me. I mean, honestly, the pinnacle of puzzle platformer stuff is Zack and Wiki.
Yeah.
Nothing beats that. You want to remaster something? Remaster that.
That would be a great idea, actually. There's a few GameCube games that they might be smart to throw some money at these third parties to.
Yeah, how about, you know what I would do? I mean, if you really want to look at kind of remaster department at Nintendo, you should go back and look at some of these things that are super valuable in the collector's market because they were underprinted or rare or whatever, and put those out. Do a quick little Cubivore remaster.
Yeah,
and people would buy that. Yeah. It's better than paying $600 for it on the GameCube.
Is that how much it is now?
It can be sealed.
My problem is that I bought Animal Leader. I bought the Japanese version of it because I imported it because
that one's not as rare,
right?
Because Cubivore was the limited print because it was like that was the golden age.
People didn't think it was going to come to the West.
Well, that was the golden age of like something weird got translated for the West, but they either couldn't afford to or weren't confident enough to put out too many copies, so it's only like this many copies, so those are the valuable ones.
That's why I imported it, because I'm like, the game was so weird. I'm like, there's no way in hell they're going to release this game in America. And then was it Atlas, I think, that
Atlas did that,
published it? Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff in that generation that's like, I mean, a lot of the horror games on PS2 are like the Haunting Ground, Rule of Rose. Rule of Rose goes for like $1,000 now.
I might have
It's not even that good.
I might have that.
I have it. It's sealed. I never opened it. I think about it all the time. I'm like,
that's awesome.
Get that sucker graded.
Yeah. So anyway, Mario vs. Donkey Kong comes out February 16th for Switch, so not much long to wait for that one. Here is one of the rare original games and one of the weirdest games of the entire Switch era, Princess Peach Showtime. This game, I mean...
Faradol says Rule of Rose goes for $1,000 opened.
Wow.
Sealed is more than that.
Mine is opened. I don't have a sealed one.
Well, you got $1,000 sitting there. If you can
I'll take it.
Go unload that
shit. Princess Peach Showtime, easily the weirdest first party, including WarioWare. This is easily the weirdest first party Nintendo Switch game, without a doubt.
Yeah, it's probably the one I'm most interested in, though. Like,
it's so bizarre. It's like Princess Peach just takes over like a play or a musical or whatever.
Princess Peach goes stag to a theater performance and has to like take care of some shit.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah. It's got this weird, almost like a set from a play, like art style, where everything's kind of like set up like it's a musical.
You know, like shit's gotten real because she had to put her hair back.
Right. Yeah. She had to rock the ponytail. That's when you know it's getting real. But it does have this kind of like, again, if you've ever worked in production in like a musical or a play and you build sets for those, the art in this is very much like that.
Yeah.
Look, I'm all for more Princess Peach games, and I'm not saying that like it definitely gets girls into gaming. I do know my wife in particular loves to play Princess Peach games. She just does. Call it what you want, but if I buy her a Princess Peach game, she will play it. If I buy her a Mario platformer, she will not play it. So
representation matters.
It does matter, absolutely. And so I like to see more games with Princess Peach in them if there are other people like my wife who will find that, hey, if Princess Peach is in the game, I'm more likely to play it. Anything we can do to get more people playing video games, I'm all for it.
And so at least this one, one of her main abilities isn't crying.
Right. That's right. I forgot about that. Yep. Look, Nintendo's learning just like everybody else.
You've come a long way, baby.
Seriously. I mean, it's taken a while, but slowly, all these publishers are starting to figure it out. So, Princess Peach Showtime comes out March 22nd. So we have one in January, February, and March. Another Code Recollection, Mario vs. Donkey Kong, and then Princess Peach Showtime. Now things start to get to just the nebulous 20...
I love it at one point. So they did put up a clip that was basically her reenacting the Justin Wong Evo moment.
Oh, really?
With a block of that Kung Fu moment. And like more and more that is being referenced in various things. There was even a... There's new like high quality like collector figures of the Street Fighter characters coming out, and they did a photo shoot where they reenacted that as part of their like photos of it. And like every time someone forwards to Justin Wong's like, stop sending me this shit. Like I don't why would I ever want to think about that again?
He has a good video series on YouTube right now that teaches you how to get good at Street Fighter. Yeah,
Justin is actually one of the best teachers I've ever seen in fighting. Like he can explain really complicated, but he does this when he commentates too. He can explain really complicated strategies and technical reasons you do things in the most plain language I think I've ever seen anyone do. He could teach a college course on it.
Yeah. We curate some of his stuff on Sifted, so you've probably seen it come through your Sifts here and there. But if you want to learn how to play Street Fighter, he's the guy.
If you want to learn, like, the best thing about it is, like, because obviously I know how to play those games. I've been playing them for 30-some years. But sometimes I listen to his stuff, and I'm like, oh, that's why I do that. Like I never really understood why I do certain things that I do, like on reflex now.
Yeah,
I'm like,
just learn.
Oh yeah, that is why that works. It's like one of those things where like I know what it is, but I never had a name for it before.
And now you have validation.
Yeah. Although the problem is now you think about it.
Right.
It's like
it just doesn't happen naturally.
It was like one of the things when I would do golf stuff. One of the things I do to fuck with people is I'd be right before they like were doing like driving range stuff. I'd be like, hey, do you exhale or inhale on your backswing? they won't even hit the ball.
That's hilarious.
Because it's all you can think about.
Right. And it's so mental. Am I breathing in?
Am I only doing that because I'm thinking about it? What about when I'm not thinking about it? Don't think about it. I'm thinking about it.
Now I am thinking about not thinking about it. That's great. So anyway, now we are into more of like the generic 2024 games that are coming to Switch. The first one is Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, which actually, and this one is in fact a complete remake of Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, which was that DS or 3DS? I think that was 3DS.
Yes, I want to say that was 3DS.
Yeah, which was a great looking freaking game, by the way. Polygonal, built out of polygons on the 3DS. It looked great. It played great. It was a great Luigi's Mansion.
Was that a launch window or something for new 3DS or something? Like
maybe.
I want to say that was a kind of
one of the games that launched with one of the updated models. Maybe.
Yeah, I can't remember.
But so they have now turned the handheld game into a full-fledged console game. If you're a fan of the Luigi's Mansion franchise, like I am, you should be very excited for this. I have a feeling a lot of people never played Dark Moon.
No, I would imagine not. I barely played it, and I don't think I even own it. I think I just
really?
I think I just played the G4 copy a little bit. But I'm glad this is a good one to rescue from that.
Absolutely.
That system.
Yep. And so I would highly recommend this. I have played Dark Moon. I played it in the handheld, and I love playing it on the handheld. I'm really excited to play it again because
the first one. Did they remake the first one?
No, the first Luigi's Mansion.
Yeah, so that's still just on GameCube.
Yeah,
and like was it on a virtual console or anything? No, you just play you play GameCube games on.
Well, you kind of need the GameCube controller to play that because it has like you squeeze it and then you click it like the triggers.
You could figure it out.
You could, yeah. I mean, obviously they made Luigi's Mansion 3.
It'd be nice if
Switch.
they figured out a way, if they put the first one somehow so you could have all three on the same system.
Yeah,
that'd be nice.
Yep. So I'm pretty excited for this. You guys know I was a big fan of Luigi's Mansion 3. It was one of my favorite games of the year it came out. And as you can see, this also has a lot of the multiplayer modes that was in Luigi's Mansion 3. The other thing, too, is that these games aren't particularly long. They're one of those games you play 10 to 15 hours, enough that you don't feel like you were ripped off, but also long enough that you're like, I feel like I got my money's worth, and you're not disappointed when it ends. So keep that in mind. That is for summer 2024. That could be, I'm guessing June would be the earliest it would show up.
June, July.
Yeah. And then, in just a generic 2024 release date, we have Paper Mario, The 1,000-Year Door. So once again, more remakes, remasters, keeping Switch afloat here for the first part of 2024. This game is amazing.
Yeah, at least this is the best game in its series.
It is, yeah. I mean, this is easily the best Paper Mario game, or Mario RPG game, in my opinion, in general.
It's either this or Bowser's Inside Story.
Yeah, I wonder how much this is worth now if you have the original copy of it.
I don't know.
1,000-Year Door.
Probably not as much as you think because they made a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean they sold a good many of them, but not as many as like a 3D Mario, like Super Mario Sunshine. But this game is great. If you like turn-based Mario RPGs, don't even think twice about this one. It plays on, as you're seeing in this B-roll, it plays on the paper aesthetic better than any game in the franchise.
Looks like it goes for about $150 for the original and about half that for the player's choice cover.
And my guess is that price has come down since it was announced, would be my guess.
That's probably true,
yeah. But anyway, Matt and I both highly recommend this game. It's amazing. In fact, anybody who's played it will highly recommend it. It is a great turn-based RPG. In my opinion, the best of all the Mario turn-based RPGs. And then we have a game that's a little more obscure that's planned for 2024. It's a game called Fantasy Life I. It's a game from Level 5. It was originally supposed to come out in like 2021 or something like that. And here we are in 2024. It still hasn't come out, but everyone seems to think that finally it is going to come out. It's this weird like life sim thing. I don't know how to explain what it is. And there is a chance that it may not come out in the West. It could end up being Japan only. But this game's been in development for so long, my guess is it will come here.
Yeah, there's very little that stays in Japan
anymore. Yeah, it used to be way more prevalent. There used to be tons of games that were released in Japan that never came to the West.
The audience is big enough that there's always somebody interested in anything.
Well, I think the advent
people aren't afraid of things. It's, that's only Japan would care about that idea. It's like Animal Crossing kind of killed that forever.
Yeah. Well, I think the commitment is lower too now because you don't have to find like someone to produce the game and someone to distribute it to all the game stores on the East and West Coast.
If worst comes to worst, you just do it digital.
Digital only, yeah. It has opened the doors to so much stuff. So
look, if various day life can come here,
exactly,
anything can come here.
Yep. So you're right. This probably will end up coming to the West. This could end up coming like at the end of the year, though. We don't know for sure. But as you can see, it's kind of like a life sim, a little bit like Animal Crossing, but a little bit more interactivity than Animal Crossing.
Stardew Valley, a little bit of Harvest Moon.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff in there. So, again, that game, no release date for it yet, and it's supposed to have come out a long time ago.
I'll tell you one thing, man. I don't need my clothes to have eyes and sentience.
Yeah.
So I'm not wearing an intelligent hat. Nobody needs that.
So again, that's called Fantasy Life I, the Girl Who Steals Time. And again, we don't have a hard release date for that yet, but
it sounds like they're really leaning into the whole like you can't stop playing this thing.
Right. Yeah. So we'll see if it does make it out this year, but it is one of the few Switch games that have been announced that's on the docket that has not come out yet. And then the rest we have 4 games that we think are probably coming out this year, but we're not 100% sure. And you can probably guess the first one we're going to talk about. And yes, it is Metroid Prime 4. 80% sure this is going to be a Switch 2 launch game.
I would hope so.
Yeah. Also, I would say playable on the original Switch because Nintendo does care about the fact that it announced this game for Switch.
You probably have a Breath of the Wild situation here where it's like it still runs on the Wii U, but if you really want to play it functionally, you won't.
Yeah. And Nintendo, again, does care. Like, it will. You watch. When it announces Metroid Prime 4, it will say it's also coming to the first Switch because we told you it was coming to the first Switch. 7
years ago.
Right. But they will hold to their word still. That is one thing I admire about Nintendo.
The other thing I'm curious about is that, there's a lot of smoke, no fire yet, but there's a lot of smoke around the idea that not only did they remaster and remake Metroid Prime 1, they did Prime 2 and 3.
Yeah.
So my question becomes, like, are they going to put those out before they put that out?
That's a good question. I mean, Metroid Prime 4 is way overdue. It's like 3 or 4 years overdue. At the very least,
maybe Metroid Prime 4 comes with 2 and 3 remaster.
That would be
as like an
crazy.
Apology.
That's possible. Again, that's something Nintendo might do.
Yeah, it's not outside.
It cares about stuff
like that's sort of something Iwata might do.
Yeah.
So maybe it's something they might think of
but not do.
I don't know.
Anyway.
Like someone in a meeting might be like, Iwata would do this. And like, that's nice.
It's a good thing he's gone now because that will cost us like $200 million or whatever.
Iwata would have like cut his salary to pay for it or something.
Yeah.
He would have gone the extra mile, I think. But
yep.
I wouldn't mind a modern version of 2. I don't like 3 very much, but like
I like 3 better than 2. 2 is my least favorite Metroid Prime.
2 has too much backtracking, but I think the 2 I hate the motion control in 3 more than I hate the backtracking in 2.
I hated the dual
Neither
worlds.
of them are on the level of 1.
Yeah. I didn't like the dual worlds in 2. Where you went to this dark world where there were like these umbrellas of safety that you had to stay under. You had to fight, and if you accidentally strayed outside of that little bubble while you're fighting the enemies, you'd lose like half your health. Like, it just drove me bonkers.
I kind of liked that. My thing with that was that the backtracking was crazy.
It really was.
Between 2 different worlds. Like, that was the problem. It was like, there's a game that could use that screenshot map marking thing.
A good analog to that would be like Banjo-Tooie.
Yes.
Like Banjo-Kazooie to Banjo-Tooie is Metroid Prime 1 to Metroid Prime 2. Where they're just like, we're just going to give you way more of what you said you liked.
And to be fair, I hate Banjo-Tooie. But like,
I do not, but I like the first game better.
The problem with Banjo-Tooie is that when I was playing it originally, the reason I gave up halfway through it was like, I kept running into things that I couldn't do, and I could never tell
where to go.
No, I could never tell if I couldn't do them because I didn't understand what I had to do, or if I didn't have the ability that I needed to do the thing.
Yeah.
And I just got tired of being confused.
I struggled in that game. I was confused too, and I had to play that game by myself. I was playing it in a locked ROM cart from Nintendo, literally
the long
cartridge with the steel case around it, so you couldn't take it out. Nobody's playing it but me. It was a nightmare. Like, you get something new, and trying to figure out where you needed to take that damn thing, it was a nightmare. I'd run over the whole damn world and be like, there it is.
It was all too big.
It was too big.
It was still better than Donkey Kong 64.
64? I like Banjo-Tooie. Because I didn't like it as much as Kazooie, but I liked it.
Banjo-Tooie was where the bloom kind of started to come off the rose of rare for me. And
it ran at like 8 frames per second.
And Donkey Kong Country 60. I'm like, Donkey Kong 64. I'm like, oh no. Like, there are 480 bananas in every level of that, and you can't get. You need to switch the characters all the time.
Matt,
and the draw distance is so short, you can't fucking see anything. Like, it's so weird.
I am 1 banana short of 100%ing that game.
Wow.
And I know there's this one challenge I could never beat.
One time, but it was back extended play Tech TV days, but Greg Bemis, if you remember him. He decided at some point, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna beat this. I'm gonna get every banana. He would come in and like after work for like 3 hours before he went home, he would sit there and try. But it took him like a month, but he did get it. He did do it.
I didn't 100% it. I am literally 99.9% done with Donkey Kong 64.
I must have maybe got 60%, if that. I don't remember. I don't think I ever finished it. But like. I remember one of the first things that happened when I first got hired full time there was Greg brought in his copy of Jet Force Gemini, and he's like, "I know you're good at this. I want you to beat this for me." I'm at the last boss. I'm at Mizar, the last boss.
Oh, that boss was brutal.
And the thing was, he hadn't upgraded his weapons, and like he didn't have enough ammo in his rocket launcher for me to beat. Like I got.
You had to go back.
No, you can't go back. You're stuck.
Oh, you're right. You are stuck.
Like you either beat him or you can't get any further, and you can't go back, can't go forward. And I tried like 7, 8, 9 times,
dude.
And I got him down to 7, but I just couldn't do it. Actually, no, maybe I did beat him. No, I did beat him. I had no health left. I was the dog. I remember now. I beat him, and it was like if I'd been hit one more time, that was
done.
It, and I did it. And like he and Adam
you had to fight that battle because you had to strafe and jump. So you had to use. How I played it was I used my 3 fingers on the C buttons. Left, right, and then tap the top one to jump as he went side to side and jumped over his laser beam.
Yeah, that's how I did it. And I remember them reacting. They're like, "Oh my god, you use a special." I'm like, "Yeah,
it's the only way to do it."
Fighting game,
same deal.
Fighting game face button trick.
Yep.
Like, no, it was you think the Monster Hunter claw thing's weird.
Yeah, exactly.
We've always had to do that.
Yeah. Well, there's one other Switch game, Switch exclusive, that's been announced that we've been waiting for, and I don't even know what's up with this thing at this point. Maybe it's been canceled. They haven't told us yet. Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake from Square Enix. This was announced, I think, back in 2001. We haven't had an update on it since like the end of 2021, but people still seem to think that it's still coming. Square Enix has not announced that it's been canceled. I don't know. It seems like they were pretty far along in this thing to just kill it.
Yeah.
Square Enix usually doesn't do that.
This is 3? Dragon Quest 3?
Yeah. But this one,
a good one.
It is good. A lot of people may not even remember that this game is out there still, but it's supposed to still be in development. Haven't heard from it for a long time. It could fill one of the gaps, maybe from the June to September time frame, if that's indeed what ends up happening with the release of Switch 2. So, Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake is still out there. And then just some wishful thinking. We've mentioned this before. A couple games that we think might be launch games for the Switch 2. Mario Kart 9. It's been like 10 years since Mario Kart 8. They're way overdue for a new Mario Kart.
This would make sense for a launch title.
I mean,
if they don't have the Mario Odyssey follow-up ready.
But here's what I'm thinking, Matt. That Super Mario Odyssey should be ready. Like, it should be ready to go for launch.
Yeah, but I don't think you do both at the same time.
Here's what I'm thinking. Mario Kart 9 for launch, and that could be August, September, whatever.
And then Mario
Odyssey
November.
For holiday. Yeah, Mario Odyssey 2 for holiday. And I do think it will be a sequel to Super Mario Odyssey.
I don't. I think it'll be something new.
You think it'll be something entirely new?
I mean, it'll be a 3D Mario.
You're right.
But I think it'll be completely new.
I don't know. They were so brave with like what they did with the first Mario Odyssey, with bringing it into like the modern world and crap.
I agree, but I think it's going to be influenced by the movie.
That would be. I would be okay with that probably.
I mean, it made a ton of money.
Right. I mean, it makes financial sense too, but I mean, Mario Odyssey sold really well too. Like
it did. I don't think they're going to repeat themselves on this one.
Yeah.
I think I would probably prefer a follow up to Odyssey because like usually
you like the hat mechanics.
I don't really like the hat mechanics, but it just in the past when they've done kind of a 3D like when they've kind of left the backyard with something, the follow up tends to be like Mario Galaxy 2.
Yeah,
they tend to really
be better,
perfect it.
Yeah. So
I'd like to see I'd like to see them take everything they learned making Mario Odyssey and make one that like kind of really hones everything to perfection.
Mm-hmm.
But my bet is that they're gonna do something totally different.
Yeah, I think that they will make a sequel to Mario Odyssey, but we'll see. But I think a 3D Mario is coming this year, whether it's at launch or at Christmas. It could flip flop. It could be the next 3D Mario at launch, and then Mario Kart at the holidays. I don't know how it's going to work out, but
it depends how they want to space them out. But it seems like they could be ready for both of them.
Both games should be ready, absolutely, and that will make Switch just blow up. Like, it may be like the biggest launch of a console ever.
Throw that. I mean, it's hard to beat Zelda.
Yeah,
the way that changed. But you could throw in some like DLC that goes up around the same time.
And what if there's like an enhanced version of Tears of the Kingdom that runs in? I mean, even if it just runs better on Switch too, so you don't get those frame rates that just totally crap the bed.
I mean, I'm sure it will. Like I said, a bunch of the staple first party games for Switch have left print.
Yeah,
and I'm sure they're going to put them out as like a works on Switch and Switch 2 thing.
Yeah,
so like, and they probably will. Hopefully, they will work better.
I think bottom line is
be nice to play Breath of the Wild at a stable frame rate.
It would be. It'd be nice to play Tears of the Kingdom at a stable frame rate too.
Yeah, I think Breath of the Wild is more likely to do that, though.
Yeah, you're right. I think no matter how you slice it, we're looking at an amazing year for Nintendo.
Yeah, I mean they've it's their game to lose.
Yeah, again.
Yeah.
I mean, we already looked at PlayStation last week. Not a whole lot inspiring there of what we know right now. That could obviously change. I've already started doing some gathering for Xbox for next week's episode. And, I mean, I don't know if we can hang with what we just talked about with Nintendo. We both just handed Nintendo... Or wait, were you Platform of the Year Nintendo too? Yeah. So we both gave Switch Platform of the Year last year. As of right now, it's kind of looking like it might repeat. So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, it's not my favorite Platform of the Year, but in terms of consistency, you can't argue.
Can't deny it.
There's just no competition.
Yep. So... even if I only get Mario Kart 9 and then we get the 3D Mario in March or whatever, still awesome.
Yeah.
Like, basically what we're looking at, the next 12 months of Nintendo is going to be pretty sweet. So, good news. If you're a Nintendo fan...
Get your wallets ready, but...
Yeah, I hope you may not want to spend any of your gift cards you just got for the holidays. You might want to save them for September or whenever for that Switch 2. And we'll see what the pricing is. But anyway, there you go. That's our preview of Nintendo for 2024.
Yeah, I agree with Agile Nate. Bowser's Fury was the experiment for the next 3D Mario. That's what I expect them to do.
It was great. That was awesome.
I liked it a lot.
Yeah. But again, it's set in the Odyssey universe, world, blah, blah, blah. So we'll see what they end up doing with it. Either way, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
New Mario idea? Cool. Another Odyssey? Cool. Can't go wrong either way with me.
That is an interesting idea, though. It's like the idea is like setting them. I mean, they're all in the same universe technically, but it's just hard to reconcile.
Yeah,
a lot. It's like and because they're just so lackadaisical about it. It's
like Odyssey going into the real world. Like that's why I think they're going to make a sequel to it, because it's such a big move that like to do that for just one game seems like they'd almost be admitting that they've screwed up.
No, but
in
like,
some way.
But like, look at how much of the movie takes place in the real world.
That's true.
Like, I think they're just going to double.
Oh, you're
down
right.
on
They
that.
kind of already are congruent anyway. Yeah. Okay. There you go. That's Nintendo in 2024. And our final topic for GameFace 372, we're going to talk about a game called Granblue. I have problems pronouncing that for some reason. Granblue Fantasy Relink. This game comes out on February 1st, and I believe it's PC, PS5, and Xbox Series.
Maybe.
I don't think it's coming to the old consoles. I know it's not coming to Switch for sure.
No, although I guess it's a remake, I think, of a mobile game.
Is it a remake of the mobile game?
Something. It's like a
or is it a
extrapolation
spin-off off the idea or something?
Spin-off of it, but I think it's also a remake of a version of this that was I don't think it was in America before, but I feel like this has existed in some form before.
Okay. Well, Granblue Fantasy is a mobile IP.
Right. But then we mostly know it as the fighting games.
Right. And there's a new one of those coming really soon,
That
too.
one already came out.
Oh, it came out in December. Right.
Yeah.
Was that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, December. Yeah. And so this is an action RPG set in that same universe as those mobile games and as the fighting franchise. Here's one thing I will say is, Matt, I've been conditioned at this point when I see games like this to think that they're free.
Well, yeah, I mean, was it... I forgot the name
like
of it.
Honkai Star Rail, all those games.
What's the game? The game with like the Breath of the Wild kind of clone with the.
I mean, this kind of looks like it too.
Right. But I mean, like that one with a big open world and it's free to
it's
play.
the one before Honkai Star Rail.
I can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember the name.
I don't play it, but I know what you're talking about. But yeah, that's what I'm getting at. There's so many of those games that look and play just like this one that are free. Mm-hmm. It's not Temtem, is it? Temtem's the Pokemon
No, it's Genshin
clone.
Impact.
Genshin Impact, yeah. And that's what I'm saying. With games like Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail out there, I see games like this, I'm like, and let's be honest, like, this looks actually better, like, graphically than Tears of the Kingdom, but these games from, like, Asia, when I see them, I'm like, oh, that's probably free to play.
A little bit. Not super much, like, because there's also, like, it rides a line between that and, like a Namco action RPG. You know, it was a little bit like Tales of Arise.
Yeah.
So you could kind of go either, and that is actually what it reminds me of the most, is that kind of thing.
The thing that stands out for me the most about this game is how fast it moves.
Yeah.
You're running, but not just that. It's like how quickly it moves from like one objective to the next.
Yeah, it's got pacing.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's shot. Just watching B-roll of it, you can see it. Like you finish, like, and it's cool too. Like when you finish off like a little mini quest, it does this crazy like slow-mo thing where your last slash, like, everything goes like psychedelic, and it tells you, okay.
Yeah, it's surprisingly good at communicating.
Yeah, you finish this skirmish, now go to the next, and you can literally run 100 yards, and there's the next one. Mm-hmm. Like the pacing and the action in this is really cool. Like something that stood out for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I played this. So this is like the demo is this little like story stretch here, fighting all these goblins to rescue civilians, and then they have there's another mode where you can play 3 standalone quests, which are like basically they're online quests. So like you can play solo with like AI party members, or you can go online and play with other players playing the other characters.
By the way, there's a free demo of this available right now.
Yeah, this is the demo,
and this is coming to PC and PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. There's no Xbox version or Switch version. And there's the slow-mo thing I was talking about earlier.
Yeah, and also if you complete each quest and all the things, you get rewards in the main game if you buy the full game.
Yeah.
So it doesn't continue to save on, but you do get rewarded for playing the demo. It's all fully voiced and acted, like the characters do act in the cutscenes. It's not just still faces. Mm-hmm. It's very standard anime dub. To the point that I recognize, like the main kid, Gran, his voice actor is like, who are you? You're the kid from Xenoblade 2 or something.
You recognize him like that.
I don't remember his name, the actor's name, but I know I've heard him in like every freaking game that looks like this, and for it's the same cast, from like all that kind of stuff. And it's pretty good. Like the combat is real time. Obviously, it is a
fast.
It's
responsive.
There's a lot of juggling. There's a lot of using your arts. There's like kind of like Xenoblade. There's when you get the thing, you knock their break bar down to a certain level. You can do a link attack with another character. If everybody does,
with like
attack,
all of them.
If everybody does their link attack at the same time, you can break the enemy and they can fall over, and you can do extra damage. You get these super attacks that like you charge the bar up, and like if you get 100%, you can activate it by. I think he's about to do it. You smash both. You click both sticks, and he does this thing. And then if everybody else has their bar ready, all the others can do theirs. So they're going to do theirs like right after that. And if all 4 characters do it, you get a final big group attack that does even more damage. And that's basically how you get through the boss battles, is you kind of fight your way until you charge that up and then unleash hell.
It's so funny. Even after you do this, the full burst right here, like you go through all 4 characters and then you do the team up attack, it still takes like an inch off the boss's health bar.
Yeah, it's a lot. When you do like a 10% damage combo on those guys, you're like, oh, I kicked some ass right there. Like it takes a while.
Oh man, yeah, the bosses in this, their health bars are gigantic.
Like, you got to use the. And I'll say, I mean, like, so there's nothing super special about this. Like, so I mean, the story seems fine, the characters seem fine. There is some like some rather funny jokes, or at least they were written that way. I don't know if the actors understood
unintentional humor.
Like there's a thing where the little dragon won't call the guy you're working for, this guy who like goes around in this sky ship and fixes stuff for people. He calls himself Mr. Fix-It. They call him Mr. Fix-It, but his name is Roland. And so the dragon keeps calling him Mr. Fix-It, and he's like, Roland, my name is Roland. And like, and at one point you call him in, and he calls like, hey, Mr. Fix-It, and he goes, this is Roland. What can Roland do for you? But the actor doesn't deliver it like that. He says, this is Roland. What can Roland do for you? And it's like the joke here is that he's trying to remind the dragon that his name is Roland and to call him Roland, but like it's not delivered that way because everyone recorded their lines separately and there's no airplay. So there's some stuff like that, but it's like
It looks like it gets a little monotonous pretty
it does
quickly.
get a little monotonous. Like after I did the third quest, which is like another boss fight, which is like, okay, yeah, I get it. It's just it lasted like 10 minutes or whatever, and it's just like, okay, this is I get it, I understand, but it is fun. Like it's not doing anything super special, but it is doing it well.
Yeah,
and like sometimes it's like I could definitely see myself sitting back and just playing this mindlessly. Maybe with a podcast or sort of running around the open world areas and sort of like, leveling up or like hitting stuff and finding hidden things. Like sometimes you just want like a really competently executed grilled cheese.
No, I hear you.
Like that's kind of what this is so far.
This looks like a game that could become a daily driver.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, I've got 30 minutes to play. Let me go online.
And I definitely think it does the thing where it has kind of the quests that like probably update every day, and you can do different things to get different materials or whatever. I can definitely see that being a thing.
But this game does cost full price. It's going to cost $60.
It is a full price, story-driven RPG. You didn't. I think the party AI is actually shockingly good.
They are
in this.
Yeah.
Like, they'll back off. They don't get hit by things if they're running around. If you jump in to help somebody, they'll generally let you do that and back off, or they will back up your attacks properly. Like I've done juggle combos that then one of the other characters picked up after I was done with a juggle, and they kept them in the air until I could jump back up and keep juggling them.
Yeah,
like they and like there's character like at the end of each quest, like the kind of the online multiplayer quest, if you play it solo or multiplayer, everybody gets kind of judged and like gets little title rewards at the end. Ran the furthest, like exploited weak spots the most. Yeah, somebody gets an MVP based on like doing the best. And I never got MVP. Like the AI characters were getting MVP for doing the best work, the best
Interesting.
damage. So none of the party combat, even though it's you and 3 AI, none of the party combat was ever frustrating or like they won't do it.
That's a big deal.
I never felt like I needed to tell them what to do, which is good because I can't.
Yeah. So, well, also ideally, you could play this with other humans if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And you could solve that issue, hopefully.
And you have a pretty
friends.
big roster to choose from. I want to say there was like 12 characters or something to pick from. So you can mix and match however you want. I'm sure you have to earn all those in the story. It's probably just a demo thing, but like a lot of variety. I believe in the final game you can choose to play the other characters if you want. Like pick your lead character. It looked like in the trailer they play, it doesn't look like Gran is the main player character all the time. So I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. This comes out February 1st, so this is also coming in the next 2 weeks.
This is all hitting at the same time.
Yeah, there's a lot of big games coming out in the next 3 weeks.
This is up against Infinite Wealth and Suicide Squad and what's the other thing? Tekken 8.
Tekken 8, yeah. It's its own thing.
I think Tekken 8 might win that fight.
It probably will, but truth be told, they're different audiences for games like this. I don't
know. I think there's a lot of crossover with Tekken in this, and probably even Infinite Wealth in this.
I do wonder, though, if people are like me and they see games like this and they're like, I played that for free. And
I don't think so.
No?
I think the bigger problem is like, it's a very generic JRPG.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think
very flashy.
I think the problem is free. I think it looks like all these sort of like Tales from Arise and Saga stuff. It just looks like you've seen it before, not just because of things like Genshin Impact, but because even like Square and Namco stuff looks like this semi-regularly.
No, you're right. Yeah, it is kind of amazing some of the games that are coming from these studios that like you've hardly ever heard of.
Yeah, and also like this stuff, like the story stuff is a little more interesting in the sense that it is sort of a Skies of Arcadia style world with like these guys in airships and like they fly from island to island. Like these are all islands in the sky. They're not just like a general like world, like continent somewhere.
Yeah.
Like the overall arcing world building seems kind of interesting. It's just not really in the demo. Mm-hmm. And so I do find myself curious about, because I do like Skies of Arcadia so much that I'm like, hey, if anybody wants to do Sky Pirates again. Or just,
I think most people would be cool with that
fucking game.
Yeah, exactly.
Sega, where are you?
That actually would be a smart move, man, to remake Skies of Arcadia.
Yeah.
I don't know why they haven't done it.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, again, the Duck Consulting
Just give me the GameCube game again.
Right.
I don't even care.
Even just up-res it or whatever.
Yeah.
You don't have to even do that much work. Because it's a great RPG all on its own.
And the GameCube game is a big improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep,
the Dreamcast one.
Yep, so that is Granblue Fantasy Relink. Again, it's coming to PC, PlayStation 5, and PlayStation 4 on February 1st. It is a full-price game. It may not look like it, but it is. And it does have some competition, but it does also, in its genre, it's kind of the only big deal for the next few months. So, something worth investigating. Will we cover it again on GameFace? Maybe. I'm glad we kind of got in a little bit early here to talk about it because, again, we have these big games coming over the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I guess I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I do intend to play it, but I'm not 100% sure what it could offer in the full game that would be in addition to what we've already said.
Right.
Like, unless there's some real surprises.
I mean, here, I guess what I'll say is we'll probably play it.
Yeah.
Will we talk about it again? 50-50. Yeah. But anyway.
Maybe when February cools off a little bit.
Yeah. But it's kind of awesome to be this early in the year and have choices of games, of good games that you want to play. So again, that's Granblue Fantasy Relink for PC and PlayStation. And with that, it's time to get to some Q&A here on GameFace. But before we do that, here's a word from our sponsor, SoundWizardry.com. Experience the realm of extraordinary audio with Sound Wizardry. With a decade-long journey in sound design, we animate your movies and video games with the breath of sound. Our wide-ranging services include sound design, Foley, sound mixing and mastering, audio implementation, dialogue mastering, and the crafting of unique sound effects from freshly recorded material. Our portfolio contains Baldur's Gate 3, Steven Universe, Alan Wake 2, Gwent, Cyberpunk 2077, and more. Visit soundwizardry.com and let us transmute your vision into an auditory marvel. That's right. Head to soundwizardry.com for all your audio needs. Literally any type of audio work that you need done, they can handle it and they can do a great job on it. An awesome resume if you're somebody who's watching GameFace and you are someone who hires people to handle audio in your games. Resume speaks for itself. Sound Wizardry worked on 2 of the Game of the Year candidates from 2023. Nobody works on projects like that unless they got themselves on lock. Go to soundwizardry.com for all your sound needs, all your audio needs. Also, by the way, just really great people over there. Glenn is literally one of the nicest people that I have met working on Sifted, which is probably why his company is doing really, really well. Go to soundwizardry.com. And with that, you got any questions for us, Matt? From chat?
Cody S. Carter just subscribed.
Thank you, Cody. Yeah, actually, I feel bad because we are now missing all the Twitch Prime stuff today.
JM Rain threw some subs at people.
Thank you, JM Rain. Again, for those of you who showed up late, just so you know, we had a mishap today when we were setting up for the show. One of our monitors fell onto this mouse, and it shattered the monitor. I know it sounds crazy. I couldn't believe it either. When I first saw it, I was like, no, I just need to reboot the monitor. Nope. That thing was shattered. So anyway, we haven't been able to incorporate chat into the show like we normally do today. I haven't been able to thank you guys for Twitch Prime or talk about your awesome comments, but we are going to answer at least a couple questions here for Q&A at the end. Got anything, Matt?
Derek D1111 says, what old franchise like Prince of Persia do you want to return in a different form? My pick would be Dino Crisis. Dino Crisis is a good pick.
It is a good pick. In a different form, though.
Yeah. I assume it means new games or some new approach.
So, but it can be like the same genre still.
Yeah. I mean, I think Dino Crisis should come into a new form because it should be an action game.
Yeah.
It should be like, at most, like a more fluid Resident Evil 4.
Yeah. I'd agree with that.
The Dino Crisis 2 was the best one because it turned it into a full action game.
Right. Yeah. Instead of a survival horror game. Yeah.
I mean, my answer is always going to be Panzer Dragoon Saga.
Yeah.
Like, the Panzer Dragoon game should come back.
I mean, that's another remake that's just sitting there.
Yeah, that should be done.
What is Sega doing?
Like, it's nice you're trying Golden Axe for the 14th fucking time.
Yeah.
How about we do something that actually needs to be rescued?
Yeah. I think one thing I would say, and I would just toss out Tribes, although they are making another Tribes right now.
I saw the Tribes 3 thing.
Yeah. They're working on it. We'll see how it turns out.
I would never have known that's what that's supposed to be by looking at it.
Yeah, it doesn't really... Yeah, exactly.
It's 5v5. Have you played the original Tribes? That's not what Tribes was.
Yeah, I know.
That's not what the point was.
I know. So I'm a little disappointed in that. I wish they would call the Duck Consulting Agency because I could definitely help them make a good Tribes game. That's one I will always point to. But the other thing I would say that just in general is I would like good arcade-style sports games. I feel like the only sports games that really come out anymore are rigid simulations. And I go back to like the PlayStation N64 era and how many awesome arcade sports games there were. You had there's a whole section of EA called EA Sports Big that was just dedicated to making arcade-style sports games. They've gone away. Like NHL 94, one of my favorite games of all time. That is an arcade-style hockey game. For the time, it was simulation because the technology that they had is the best they could do. Now, if you play it, it's an arcade-style hockey game. I would love to play another arcade-style hockey game. Like, they've tried to put, like, the 3-on-3 modes in the new NHL games. They're not the same. Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey.
Is that the one where you can make Gretzky's head bleed?
Yes.
NHL 94?
Yeah, and you can... No, Gretzky, you can. On the Genesis, you can.
In Genesis,
so on the Genesis, they bleed out, and an ambulance comes on the ice and hauls them out. On the Super Nintendo version, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, famously in Swingers.
Right, yeah, exactly.
John Favreau.
They go through the whole kind of thing, yeah. So anyway, Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey, one of the most underrated sports games of all time. I'm tired of having to play simulations. I want to play fun takes on the sport. I covered one not that long ago. We had an arcade football game called Wild Card or whatever that I played. I think that was in October, maybe?
Something like that.
I'm looking for that stuff. So I would just like to see more fun sports games instead of just like, this is just like the real thing, and if it isn't, then it sucks. Like, I'm tired of that. I want to get off that train. I want to see good arcade sports games. So you could just revive any of those franchises, and I would be cool with it. But again, there's still
lines, I would like to see just in similar kind of a parallel thing. I would like to see the cyber sports stuff come back. Cyberball and the cyber baseball game and all that. Like, all that stuff was a lot of fun, and it kind of added a cool new wrinkle, and you could make it more really, be able to, almost like Armored Core style, being able to tweak the robots and like mess with things, and like
Mutant League. Bring it back. There's a lot of room in this, and again, these games will sell if you do them well. People love sports games; they sell very well if you make a good game. So,
and if you theme it and make it fun to play enough, it'll cross over out of the sports audience.
Absolutely,
I would buy a cyberball, baseball game.
That's the thing. These arcade style sports games, they transcend the people who actually like the sports.
Yeah, like I do not give a shit for one brief microsecond about basketball.
Yeah.
But I played NBA Jam for hours and hours and hours and hours.
Mechanics. Great mechanics. Yep. So, those would be my picks. Any other?
I didn't even know who half the players were when I was playing the game. I was like, Spud Webb is a real person? Whatever. I'm playing him.
That's hilarious. Spud Webb was like an urban legend back in the day because he was like 4 feet tall, but he could dunk.
Yeah.
He was in the dunk contest.
He was my guy in NBA Jam. I played as him every time.
I saw a photo one time of him standing next to Manute Bol. Do you remember Manute Bol?
Yeah.
He's like 7'3" and like a string bean. And I think like Spud Webb came up to like his waist.
Yeah. But in NBA Jam, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Spud Webb.
Yep.
Jam's
awesome.
at home.
Exactly. Got another question for us? I think we can answer one more before we got to go.
Congrim1 says, with Naughty Dog canceling their multiplayer project and the Insomniac leaks showing Last of Us Part 2 only selling 10.3 million copies as of November 23, which had a budget of $230 million without marketing, do you think the remaster remake is a bit of financial desperation seeing as Part 2 undersold?
Yeah. I do.
Could be.
Yeah. I mean, they haven't really recouped as much as they thought they would from The Last of Us Part 2.
I mean,
that was one thing that did blow my mind from that Insomniac leak, was seeing how little that game had sold. I mean, it still was a great hit, but
yeah, I think also think like I can't imagine Sony has an issue with that franchise. I think after the success of the TV show and the prestige it brought them and the Golden Globe win, like Sony, I guarantee you, believes they got their money's worth out of that
absolutely
franchise.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's going to continue to as they adapt. Last of Us Part 2 is about to pay for itself in 3 seasons of TV.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I could see some of that, like especially trying to ride the wave of
trying
to ride the wave of
the show
is what they're doing here.
Yeah. And they're trying to capitalize on that to sell more of their video.
It's a double whammy of like trying to capitalize on the wave of the show and the success of the Golden Globe win and the Emmys to sell more of the remaster of this game and maybe sell some PlayStation 5s while we're at it. And on top of that, trying to keep that franchise top of mind so that when the next season comes back, probably next year, you're still kind of getting used to having Last of Us constantly sort of in the conversation. Yeah.
And we'll be talking about that in next week's episode, by the way. I realized the embargo broke this morning for reviews, and they're up on Sifted if you want to read them or watch them. Matt and I will talk about it briefly in next week's episode. We'll probably just talk about the extras in it. We won't talk about the base game because I think we talked about that game for like an hour and a half when it came out. So we will address that remaster. I guess it's a remaster. Well, I guess if you add the extra stuff, it probably is a remake. There's the Lost Levels stuff in there. There's
it's a remake.
Yeah.
It counts.
Yeah, they did a lot of work on it. So we'll talk about it.
I would be less charitable towards it if it wasn't going to cost $10.
Right.
If you already own me.
And don't forget, by the way, that is if you own the original game, it just costs $10 to upgrade to the new one. So I think they're going to have a lot of cha-ching $10 sales here over the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I'll pay $10 just for that roguelite thing.
Yeah,
they did.
me too.
So that's fine by me.
Yep, me too. All right, that's going to do it for GameFace episode 372. Again, I apologize for not being able to get you guys into the show as much as we'd like. That will be fixed for next week's episode. And then an episode or two after that will be unveiling the new GameFace, which is pretty exciting. Just a couple notes for those of you who are watching on YouTube or listening on any of the podcast services. If you want to support us, head to patreon.com/sifted. That's SIFTD. And you can pledge there. For $4 a month, you get all our content early. For $2 a month, you get Pack to Factor early. Or you can subscribe with Twitch Prime. And if you're watching on YouTube, the instructions to do that are down below. It costs you nothing. If you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, you can give us a free $2.50 every month if you do it. And once you've hooked it up the first time, it literally takes 3 seconds to do it after that every month. We'd really appreciate it if you could do that. Even if you are a patron, that would be awesome. And if you have no money or you're not an Amazon Prime member, you can still do stuff to help. You can like the show, you can subscribe on YouTube, you can share it on social media, you can review the show on any of the podcast services and give us a review. That helps the show bubble up in search. There's lots of stuff you can do even if you don't have any money, and we appreciate it all. So that's it for GameFace 372. Big stuff coming. Games, GameFace, everything here over the next few weeks. Really excited to do it with you guys. We'll see you next Tuesday right back here at twitch.tv/SiftedGames. GameFace is up and out.